I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
All right. We are live. Welcome back to Reason Answers, your home for the
crackhead clown individuals.
Sorry about the delay getting started. Behind Veils just dropped a new video, and we were debating whether we wanted to cover that. And, well, we will definitely cover it, but whether we wanted to delay today's planned stream to cover it, we ended up deciding to cover the Behind Veils video tomorrow. But because we were having that discussion, I was distracted and I didn't have everything set up. So then I had to get things set up, and then we finally went live. So welcome back, everyone. Today we will be discussing the falseness of a prophet who is addicted to sex, but it isn't the one you think. Well, we might talk about him some too, but we're going to be focusing in on Joseph Smith, the prophet of Mormonism, or Church of the Latter-day Saints, as they like to call themselves. We'll find that it seems that when Satan picks his prophets, he has a certain pattern to the kind of guys that he likes to pick. We do have the lap cat cam going here with Einstein, and whoop, for a second there at least, we had the main cat cam with an unusual guest, Demeter, but she has decided to get up and walk away. She's like, nope, I don't want to be on screen. How dare you put me on screen? So welcome back, everyone. I will put up a fundraising goal here in just 1 second as well. We'll do, if we get 10 donations today, which could be either gifted memberships or they can be super chats. I think that the official counter will only count super chats, but don't worry, I'll count either one. Then we'll do a poll for a new channel animation. And be sure to stay tuned to the end of the program because after this program, we're going to debut my new video on Ali Dawah caught in a hotel with a prostitute. So lots of good stuff happening today. Welcome back, Mary. What would you like to say as introduction about our good buddy Joe Smith?
Yes, although it seems like that Joseph Smith had no access to the actual contents of the Quran, at least for the his early career, he still had many things in common with Muhammad, sometimes curiously exact things in his sex life, whether or not you're talking about things that are a bit incestuous or things that are just leading toward the very, very young. They had certain tastes in common. So try not to say naughty things really early in the stream, so the stream doesn't get in trouble. But it's hard because, you know, these are two men.
It's interesting how that it's interesting how that works on YouTube. If you say something in the first 30 seconds of a video, it counts much more against you than if you say it 10 minutes in. And if you put it in the thumbnail, then that's like 100 times worse. So who knows?
Oh, yeah. So someone mentioned that the portrait that you normally have of Joseph Smith is this ridiculously, it doesn't look anything like him. I have an actual photo. It's colorized, but I have an actual colorized photo here that I have at the beginning of this because, yeah, they give him like this square jaw and this waving blonde hair. but not quite what he looked like.
So we do have Artemis joining us. Demeter left, but Artemis came to be part of the stream. She's the fame hungry kitty. She's the one always trying to be on the stream. And it looks like Einstein might be getting up to leave. So cat's coming, cat's going. But don't worry. We have for you today a wonderful presentation on our 2 favorite false prophets.
Yeah. And regular people in Mormonism don't know that it was founded by someone who wanted to be a warlord, by the way, who wanted to overthrow the U.S. government, who staged, ordered political assassinations, and they were trying to convert the Indians so that the Indians would help them kill anyone who did not convert. That's what he was doing. A lot of people have historically been in denial about Joseph Smith's polygamy. It's like, oh, Brigham Young, he introduced that, and then it got eliminated later. Yeah, no, it's from him. But Mormonism still has a completely destructive and messed up view of what faith is. To a Mormon, the word blind faith is actually what it means. It means believing something contrary to all evidence, it's not belief with evidence in something that has not yet happened, like that you've not seen Christ return, but you still have faith that it will happen. You have not yet been resurrected, but you have faith that it will happen, right? No, that is not what it means to them. They are taught that faith means belief in spite of evidence. It is seeking after feelings and imagination and affirming that as truth. It's one of the reasons why MLM is called Mormons Losing Money. They're very, very active. Most of them are started by Mormons because it preys on the against reason, blind faith that Mormonism actually teaches. And when you set up your followers with the view that what you have to do is believe in something, even though everything tells you that it's a lie, they're much easier to manipulate. I mean, you'll have Mormons go, oh, Joseph Smith used to do magic and sacrifice dogs and used to do necromancy. Well, can't God use anything? I'm like, do you think God uses the prophets of Baal? Oh, Baal worship was really common in ancient Israel. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the prophets of Baal to bring true revelation. That's the kind of argument you're making. Oh, with God, all things are possible. Sweetie, no. Just know, God does not endorse witchcraft and necromancy, heresy, and evil. He doesn't. Sorry. All right.
So got a couple comments from the audience before we get started. So Fotrius said Smith's successor was named Brigham Young, or Bring M Young, as a great name likes to a great YouTube name that I haven't seen around in a little while, but I think they still use it. I'm not sure. Anyway, history is a joke. Indeed. Rory said, do you think Joseph Smith was a member of the KKK? Not that I'm aware of.
No. He predates the KKK. He was dead before it started. The KKK
there you go. So
started
definitely not.
After Civil War. So no. He had a lot of very racist beliefs that were kind of kicking around as a result of the Enlightenment, which basically Enlightenment thinkers wanted to explain why white people are better than everyone else. They start with the assumption that they are. And Not just that they have had a culture that's been more successful. Nope, nope, nope. That they are genetically superior. They start with that assumption and then seek to explain why. And he dips into that well and takes from that. So he was quite racist, ridiculously racist. But it is he is not associated with that group.
Mm-hmm. Michael says the area of New York Smith started was notorious for wacky preachers, and we covered some of that in a previous episode on Pagan Rocks, we called it, how Joseph Smith was one of multiple people practicing like magical seeing stones to try to find treasures and stuff. So if you're interested in that, check out the video on Pagan Rocks. Mike also said there's zero archaeological or genetic evidence supporting the pre-Columbian Americas as portrayed in the Book of Mormon. And indeed, that is true.
And in
Mormons
fact,
did actually expect that, right? They did in the past. They expected that their book would be confirmed. And then it was not. None of the evidence was there. And like, well, you'll get one of two things. You'll get, well, maybe there was like some small tribe and that's why there's no evidence because it was just really tiny. Or they'll say, well, you know, we have faith and we don't need the evidence.
Yeah.
Maybe God has tricked us by setting up the past to or the archaeology to trick us or whatever. So you'll get both of those.
Again, faith. We have faith, meaning we have blind confidence against all evidence based on wobbly feelings. It's just based on, do you feel it? And they try to get all the mystical sensations and encouragement. That they call that a testimony. You know, do you have a burning of bosom? Do you have your testimony? A feeling is not a testimony. You're not giving evidence of anything. You just have managed to make yourself excited. Okay, nice. You're excited about something. People can be excited about all kinds of things. And the main attraction, there were two big attractions of Mormonism to people of Muhammad, of Joseph Smith's day. The first one was that he wrote an extremely bad imitation of the Bible, just recycling phrases over and over again and just lumping them together and repeating them over and over again. And by this point, the English language had drifted such that you don't get that style of writing or speech in anything that you're reading. It was ordinary, plain old speech in the time of 611 when the translation was made. It was made into the vernacular of the time. But by the time Joseph Smith pops around 200 years later, it now does not read, it now reads like something very old-fashioned and very different from what people are used to. And people don't really read a bunch of essays from the 17th century, right? They're just not exposed to tons of 17th century writing. So if it sounds a lot like the Bible, it kind of feels like the Bible to them. And there were a bunch of other people writing these kind of fakey prophecy things, and they'd always use early modern English to put it in to make it seem more legit to people who are used to the King James. Additionally, the other major argument for it was the evidence of what people were saying about the history and the archaeology and everything else. He was providing an explanation for new discoveries that people found plausible. It was similar to other explanations that other people were saying. And he was, the things like, oh, there's iron and silver and gold and all this stuff in the, even though in actuality, in the Indian mounds, there was copper only. Copper was it. You did not get bronze. You did not get iron. You did not get silver. You did not get gold in North America. And no iron in South America either. No iron anywhere. But he could get away with this Why? Because people were reporting that people were finding things made of these other materials, even though they really hadn't. But if you read the newspapers, you'd think that his story sounded kind of plausible. People just didn't know, and he was providing a plausible explanation for, in the same way that Muhammad, as he was, walking around like a madman, claiming that he's the last prophet and everybody else had their prophet, he says, walk around go about the earth and you will see the ruins of all the places where these other prophets have come. And that is proof that every city has had its prophet. That seemed plausible to people around him. To us, it's absolutely ridiculous. But in that same way, it was plausible for those people then.
We do have John Wilson here who says he has a burning sensation in his bosom that Mormonism is false. So we now have conflicting burning bosom messages. So I don't know what to do with that. Maybe we should just go with the evidence. Maybe we should just go with the evidence instead of our feelings. I don't know. I don't know. The penis prophets. Oh no.
Yes, they are penis prophets. So the most obvious false type pattern of false prophet that there is the penis prophet. You get a guy who runs around declaring that he's getting messages from God. He has access to the other world. He has new revelation. And somehow this new revelation is always about all the women that he, and sometimes men, but at least the women that he can have sex with that would not normally be allowed in his own culture, standard, whatever. So his revelation seems awfully oriented toward his personal pleasure. And because these guys are very, very often narcissists, they're usually grandiose narcissists. Occasionally, they are the insecure type of narcissist, but they're almost always grandiose narcissists. You'll also see that there are early signs that they have issues with sexual control, sexual behavior, that kind of thing. There are very often warning signs ahead of time to those who are paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Before you go on, K does have a very interesting question here. I have a question. If their wives are with them on their planets, so when good Mormons die, they get their own planet, but then they maybe are still having children on their new planet. Then,
no, you have to. So what you do is, if you are not sealed to someone for time and eternity, or at least for eternity in marriage, you don't get to have a planet. The best you can hope for is that you turn into an angel. So all of the angels of Muhammad, they're the spirits of the dead. So anytime he talks to an angel, he is doing necromancy. He's not actually talking to an angel according to his own testimony, because he just calls dead people angels if they have not been sealed forever to a woman. And only if you are sealed do you get to be a god and have your own planet. Then your job is to have sex with your wife for a very long time and have her birth out every single soul. You have spirit babies. And then once you've assembled all the spirit babies for this planet, then you get to engineer the planet and get a human on there somehow. I don't know about you do engineering or what, but anyway, you get humans on there somehow, and they have to incarnate each one of the souls that you guys already made, the soul babies. And then if they're really good Mormons and get sealed to someone, they get to have their own planets. So it's literally the most ridiculously obvious logical regress problem. Because it would not take very many generations if only 2 people from each iteration had made it to their own planets. You would run out of planets in the universe very rapidly.
So Allah said he called dead people angels. No, I don't think Muhammad
Yeah,
called
Moroni.
them.
Well, Moroni was all angels are dead people. Okay, so
According to Joseph Smith.
all angels are dead people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Moroni is a dead person. He's talking to the spirits of the dead. He's a necromancer. But he was trying to talk to the spirits of the dead while he was running around sacrificing dogs on graves earlier. Remember what he's been actually doing, guys. So all angels are dead people, but only some dead people are angels.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So wait. So the options are like if you have your eternal marriage or whatever, then you get your planet.
Yeah, if you get
if
the
you're a
top
good
rewards.
right.
So
If
your
you're
top
a
rewards.
Mormon,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have that, then you become an angel and you
Yep.
stay on the same planet you're already on. And if you're
I'm
just
not sure, but I think so.
and if you're bad, then what? You cease to exist, or you go to hell, or what?
You get
Or you're
well,
tortured in the
regular
grave, or...
Christians kind of get this inferior little heaven where they're kicking around and doing stuff. But if you were a Mormon and already knew about the wonders of Mormonism and you leave it, then you go to hell. So that's the outer darkness. And then you're sad and mopey forever.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you got lots of options where you go when you die in Mormon land. So now we got sexual incontinence.
Yes,
Interesting.
early sexual incontinence when they are quite young men. So Muhammad almost certainly had intercourse with his slave woman Barakah, who had raised him as close to a mother as he had. What is the evidence for it? First, she was his slave. He had sex with many of his female slaves, and that was very common then, and he had no expectations that he'd be able to marry, and his own relatives also just had sex with slaves that they couldn't marry. But also her son's paternity, her oldest son's paternity, is fabricated. And the source says he is made to be like 3 years old when he's leading missions and riding around. Her second son is like put after her menopause. Like it's ridiculous. And the reason why they do that is because they do not find it acceptable to have the paternity that Muhammad thought the child had. Now keep in mind that they had people whose job it was to look at a child and decide whether or not they thought he belonged to a certain father or not, but also they had the pagan practice of throwing arrows to determine paternity, and that's part of what Hubal's responsibility was inside the Kaaba. Whenever Muhammad was born, and his grandfather was very suspicious about his paternity because he was born, 4 years after his dad died, he hauled him to the Kaaba, stood in front of Hubal and addressed him as Allah. And of course, they have him say something vague here. But right before that, Ibn Ishaq had said, oh, this is where you take babies with doubted paternity. So we know what's really going on there. So remember that he was a very low-ranking member, and she was Abyssinian. They didn't want to have a half Abyssinian child to be recognized. So they said that was not his child. I don't think it actually was anyway. I think he was sterile for life, but I believe that he thought that Ayman was actually his son.
So just to be clear, Muhammad is having sex with the woman who acted as his mother.
Correct.
Obviously isn't genetically his mother, but socially is his mother.
Yes.
He thinks that he got her pregnant.
Yes.
So then they go on the Maury show of the day. They go to their god and ask who's the father of this child. And apparently Muhammad was not the father.
Right.
According
that's
to
what happened.
Hubal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I got that right.
Absolutely right. All right. So Fatima bint Asad was also someone that Muhammad had sexual interest in that was well enough known by all of his followers that whenever she died and was in the grave and he climbed down on top of her, they thought that he was having intercourse with her. I don't think he actually was. That's the crazy thing. I have a better opinion of him on this than like his own followers did at that time. I think he was trying to like bring her back to life. But why would they think that he was having sex with his aunt? And I believe that he and Abu Talib did the type of wife swap marriage where you trade wives and have intercourse with each other's wives. And that would be a way, specifically, Aisha even says it's a way to father children. And she says it's so that you can have a great man be the father of your child. But of course, the child would be counted as yours. It would be a way to address suspected infertility. That you would each like trade wives, go into each other's wives, and then you could pretend that the kids were yours and came about whenever you went into your own wife and not whenever the person you're doing that with. More evidence for that is the fact that Muhammad, when he fostered Ali, as long as Abu Talib was alive, he did not betroth any of his daughters to Ali. Typically, if you have no sons, you would make one of your kids' cousins your heir and marry them to a daughter. You'd make a daughter's husband your heir and basically grab a cousin who wasn't going to inherit very much. Muhammad had a boy that he was fostering because his father had gone bankrupt. Abu Talib had gone bankrupt and was having a hard time with money. And so it would have been the normal thing for him to do for them to become betrothed. But that did not happen as long as Abu Talib was alive, because Abu Talib could go, hey, wait, those kids might be mine. So we can't have this whole marriage thing between half siblings. And yes, I think that that's what actually happened. I think half siblings married. And that's really the only way. I mean, he made a slave boy whom he only met when the slave boy was 15, made him his son, rather than making his nephew his son. Which it's a very, very unusual thing in that culture.
Una says, ooh, that's weird.
Oh, I don't like that.
I mean,
Now,
you could do that, but the fact that he already had a fostered nephew is what makes it so incredibly weird. Just to be clear.
and then Misha said, Muhammad, normal? In the same sentence, I don't buy that alibi. Muhammad being normal? Never, never. Now we come to Joseph Smith. And surely he's not going to have these same strange desires as Muhammad, right?
Ha.
Because he's a very proper, upright member of society.
Yeah. So Joseph Smith here, he had problems with other men's daughters from before he declared himself to be a prophet. So something happened with the daughters of Josiah Stowell, who was the guy who hired him to go and look for treasure in Pennsylvania. The whole treasure thing that ended in a trial where he got convicted of being a fraudster, basically. The girls were 18 and 20 at that time, which was usual for girls not to be married by the 1800s. Girls typically married in their early to mid, like 21 to 25 would be pretty normal for marriage ages. 18 would still be quite youngish. 20 would be so they were of a typical unmarried age at this time, living with their father, and he spent some time in their household. And things came out only in 1830, when he had already moved to Fayette, New York, that caused him to be arrested and then seriously questioned. And the outcome was that he was not finally formally charged with anything because there just wasn't enough evidence and enough of that something criminal had gone on, basically, that they could not prove enough that something criminal had happened to lay charges, but they had thought that there might have been something criminal to the point that they did arrest him. So keep that in mind. And this was downstream of an earlier scandal. So Josiah Stowell found out about whatever he'd been messing with his daughters after he got basically run out of town for what he was doing to another girl. In Harmony, Pennsylvania, in 1826, there was a 16-year-old girl named Eliza Winters who was a friend of Emma, his wife, Joseph Smith's wife, and she was frequently in and out of their house. And the scandal with her was massive. And he left Harmony largely because of scandal concerning her. There were so many accusations brewing. This particularly emerged after he had condemned Martin Harris for allowing his wife to have supposedly burnt the manuscripts of the first part of the Book of Mormon. So then he repudiated him. He said that God calls you an evil man and all kinds of things. And Martin Harris started talking about stuff he knew. Things that Martin Harris came back into the good graces of Joseph Smith later on. He never rejected what he said. And he also added to it later on, as we shall see. So at that time, Harris was starting to question the various things that Joseph Smith had been telling him, having been condemned and now he's away from his persuasive personality. He's like, hey, Joseph was doing this. Seems kind of messed up. And as soon as he was with him again, he was just putty in Joseph's hands. But when he wasn't there, he was like, that might be messed up. He never said it didn't happen. He was just like, oh, I guess it's fine. My prophet says it's fine.
So to be clear, Joseph Smith there's at least reason to believe that he's messing around with the daughters of his friends. Of course, Muhammad pressured his best friend into allowing him to marry his 6-year-old daughter. It does seem to be fairly similar, I must say.
Well, here he's kind of doing it under their noses. He's just kind of doing it under their noses. But
so you're saying that the dad actually didn't know?
No. The dad didn't know. The dad didn't find out about, in this case, until after Joseph Smith was accused in the case of Eliza Winters. Eliza Winters, her father had absolutely nothing to do with Joseph Smith whatsoever.
Right.
So,
The second one there on the list, that one was, you said, was a friend of Joseph Smith's wife who was coming over to hang out with her, right? And then Joseph took advantage of that situation, is the allegation.
And it gets quite spicy because she was accused of having a bastard child by Harris. By implication, this is Smith's bastard child that he said that she had had. Harris is also the source that Joseph Smith said that his adultery with her was cool with God. God told me that's fine for me to do this. She sued him for saying that she had a bastard child, and she lost on the facts of the matter. She lost the case on the facts. It wasn't dismissed for lack of evidence or whatever. No, she lost the case on the facts. This is the actual entry of the suit. So Eliza Ann Winters was going to be married by a guy named Benjamin Comfort, and Martin Harris goes, her? She's a whore. She had a bastard child. And so she sued him,
Uh-huh.
and judgment was entered against the plaintiff, Winters, it appears, because Winters, it appears, was either infamous and scandalous before Martin had denounced her, or could not convince the court that his words were legally slanderous, could not convince them that saying that she had had a bastard child was slanderous. Why wouldn't it be slanderous? Because it might be true.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there might be some ambiguity as to who the father is, but it should be rather obvious whether or not the
Yeah.
woman had a child.
Well,
So-
I mean, she probably went away to another town to have the child and then put him up for adoption.
Gotcha.
So there are other early indecencies of the declared prophets. And yes, I spelled that wrong on purpose. Muhammad, he jumped in bed with the only available warm body who was willing to marry him as soon as his wife was dead. Khadijah, he couldn't marry someone else while Khadijah was alive because of the type of marriage that they had. Basically, she had the authority to divorce him. She would kick him to the curb if he had taken another wife. She's dead, and in less than 20 days, he's already in bed with Sauda. He also bullied his friend Abu Bakr into blessing his betrothal with the 6-year-old Aisha, while he refused to betroth his 15-year-old daughter to his friend because Abu Bakr was too old. Abu Bakr, who is slightly younger than Muhammad, is too old for Fatima, who is 9 years older than Aisha. And then he had sex with a little girl when she was only 9 years old. Joseph Smith, he seduced or raped his friend's 16-year-old daughter. And when his friend found out, he tried to convince him, it's totally fine. And this happened in March of 1832. This is a different girl. So people generally don't like men who turn girls into their comfort women, or people trying to overthrow the government. Those were basically the two things that people had against Muhammad, against Joseph Smith. Wherever Joseph Smith went, he was either trying to overthrow the government or have sex with everybody's daughters, or let his men have sex with everybody's daughters. And people were not cool with that. Weird. But, he was persecuted.
Strange.
Persecuted. The persecution against poor little Joseph Smith, who was only trying to overthrow the government and sleep with everybody's daughters. Right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the proof that he was a true prophet, because, all true prophets are persecuted. Of course, all false prophets seem to be persecuted too.
Yeah.
But,
By this time, he had moved twice, both right after sexual allegations. The first move was after he was accused of mucking with Eliza Winters. Then he was arrested about the Josiah Stowell thing and decided to get all the way out of New York and go all the way off to Ohio to get farther away from Harmony, Pennsylvania. So he's already moved twice because of sexual misconduct. Now he's in Kirtland, Ohio. And he's only there a short while when a mob forms, drags him from the bed, straps him to a board. They had grabbed a doctor to castrate the man. But the doctor, unfortunately, loses his nerve, so he gets tarred and feathered instead. This mob was mostly made up of Mormons, his own followers. Because he was having sex with Nancy Miranda Johnson, who was a 16-year-old niece of Eli Johnson and the daughter of John Johnson. And sometimes she's Miranda Nancy, sometimes she's Nancy Miranda. They're not terribly consistent. So Eli, the brother of the guy whose daughter was being taken advantage of, he woke John out of his trance briefly. It's like, what are you letting this man do? How can you let him interfere with your daughter like this? What is wrong with you? And got him worked up, and the mob formed. But nothing came of it. They didn't leave. So, of course, he started having sex with her again later after officially introducing polygamy, because, of course, he did. And she was 26 by then and married to another man. And he had her sealed to him, having previously been just having intercourse with her. So one thing that is very salient about false prophets is that they will set up standards, show that they're the true moral prophets, and then they will violate their own standards, making themselves evil according to their standards. With our buddy Muhammad, he said you can only have 4 wives, in 4:3. And in fact, he made people divorce extra wives. Ghillan ibn Salama, whatever his name was, he had 10 wives. One of his followers had 10 wives. And Muhammad said to them, when he became a Muslim, he had 10 wives. Muhammad said to him, you need to divorce all but 4. And Ibn Kathir notes that, therefore, had it been allowed for men to marry more than 4 women at the same time, the Prophet would have allowed him to keep more than 4 of his wives, since they all embraced Islam with him. When he commanded him to keep just 4 of them and divorce the rest, this indicates that men are not allowed to keep more than 4 wives at a time under any circumstances. If this is the case concerning those who already had more than 4 wives upon embracing Islam, then this ruling applies even more so to marrying more than 4. So, similarly, he said that it is incest. It's also forbidden to you, 4:23, are your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, etc., etc. Who else? Who else? Your foster mothers, your foster sisters, your mothers-in-law, your stepdaughters. All of these things. You also can't have the wives of your sons nor 2 sisters together at the same time. So, wives of your sons falls into this incest category. Both of these, Muhammad violated, which are basically the only restrictions, right? He violated them. So before he started violating them, Muhammad's harem consisted of the 4 women he was allowed. The other 2 wives were dead. That was his first wife, who could have divorced him for having a second wife, and then a woman who was called the mother of the poor, who died of natural causes very quickly after marrying him. He had taken another woman, but he had taken under his own rules a sex slave. So he had taken Rayhana, the sex slave, by then, but he only had 4 wives at that point who were in rotation. But then he saw Zainab bint Jahash, who had asked him to marry her previously when he did not have 4 wives. He only had 3 wives, and she asked to marry him. And he's like, no, your face is ugly. I'll marry you to my adopted son, though. Being a cousin, she had more rights on him than other people necessarily did. So she was married off to his adopted son. And so, remember that Zayd at this time was called Zayd ibn Muhammad. The Haritha is a retrojection of a change that happened later. Went to the house, started to go in, look for him, and she was dressed only in her underclothes when he bursts through the door, and he sees her and he's like, "Oh, Allah, who causes the hearts to turn. Oh, I'm so horny." And it was so obvious to Zainab that whenever Zayd came home, she told him what had happened. Eventually, Zayd divorced her, and Muhammad declared, "Oh, Allah made me lust after this married woman who is also my son's wife, to show that you can marry your son's wives as long as that son was adopted. And also to show that there is no such thing as adoption, and you should not consider anyone to be adopted by anyone." And keep in mind that these are 2 contradictory reasonings. One can be true, the other one can be true. They can't both be true. Muhammad said them both because the first one did not satisfy the people who basically rebelled against him and were really close to just declaring him a false prophet, because it was so obvious that he was doing something solely for his own lust and ascribing it to Allah. And somehow, because they weren't going to say that, they are your son, but it's okay to have intercourse with a son's wife who is adopted. I mean, think about it. Your daughter-in-law is not genetically related to you. So why should it matter whether or not that son is related to you if this is a prohibition? If it's incest on the base of familial bonds that are not based on genetics. And so the point is, like, how can it be incest to have relations with your son's wives if you're saying that, adopted sons don't count because they're not genetically related? Well, that doesn't even figure in. It's about the ties of family. So just by going, no adoption, that was more palatable to people. Although, of course, it was an anti-Christian stance and a horrible injustice.
I might say.
Yeah, inhumane and a horrible injustice to the people involved. So, our buddy Joe, we've talked about Mo, now we're going to talk about Joe. Joseph Smith was called Joe during much of his lifetime. He was called Brother Joseph later on, but he was Joe Smith to all the people who knew him early.
So before you do that, I want to address this real quick. So Logical Dawa came in and he said 2 clowns. I agree 100%. We are definitely talking about 2 clowns today. Muhammad and Joseph Smith would be those 2 clowns. And then when I said that, he said, Prophet Muhammad had way too many women. Yes, I agree. He had way too many women. Do you even know what words mean? Right? Do you even understand how to write coherent sentences? You just said that Muhammad did something wrong. He had way too many women. More than I can dream. Well, no, I mean, I can theoretically dream of infinite women, but also I have no interest in infinite women or multiple women for that matter, because you know what? I have a loving relationship with my wife, and that's the only thing I would want. I'm not a pervert like your prophet who thinks that my penis's desires are the highest thing. And that's what God desires, is whatever my penis desires. And I'm not, and I actually don't desire to have sex with hundreds of women or thousands of women like your perverted prophet did, because I'm not a sick man, unlike him. And then he finally says, search Google religion with most converts is Islam, which is totally false. Islam might be the fastest growing religion, but it's due entirely to high birth rates. As far as converts go, Islam
which are crashing, by the way. They're crashing.
Yeah, the birth rates are crashing. And Islam gets approximately the same number of converts as there are apostates. And both numbers are very low. The apostates is very low because of the death penalty,
official
cultural ostracization. Yeah. Yes, officially, right? Officially. And that's all they can go by is official. But there's barely any converts to Islam, or at least barely any converts that stay. A lot of people might convert when they're forced to in a public scene where a guy puts a lot of pressure on them to say some magic words. But over 80% of so-called converts leave Islam basically instantaneously, because they never converted to begin with.
Well, even then, like, that's counting the ones who are more official, who like show up to mosque, not just the ones who say a few words, right? It's the ones who start going, they're like, oh wait, no, this is nonsense. The people who scratch the surface and learn a little about Islam before they get all wrapped up in it leave really quickly.
But we'll just let Mufti Menk answer this question.
There are many people who are leaving Islam, perhaps the largest in number.
This is perhaps the largest of any religion is the number of people leaving Islam. He's actually wrong about that, but there are a ton of people leaving Islam for some reason. But Muhammad Afridi, who is aware of that, who's actually smarter than Logical Dawa, believe it or not, says, no big deal. They're going to be replaced by a high birth rate. So he actually knows the real reality here. They're not replaced by converts. At best, they're replaced by a high birth rate. But unfortunately for Afridi, other than in Pakistan where he lives, the birth rate is plummeting throughout the Muslim world.
Yep, it's plummeting in Egypt. It's plummeting in Mauritania. It's plummeting everywhere, like literally everywhere. It's falling off a cliff. So,
But well, one more, Mary. But even if that was true, right? Even if Islam was growing because of high birth rate, well, one, that would make your prophet false because your prophet claimed that Islam would collapse back to nothing. And then the primary argument for the truth of Islam is that your prophet made a false prophecy because Islam is going to take over the world. Ignoring that, what about the actual intellectual truth of the matter, right? As Allah says, Allah is very wise. Doesn't it bother you, Afridi, that you need unsustainable breeding to make up for the intellectual failure of Islam?
yeah.
Doesn't bother Afridi, and it doesn't bother logical Dawa because Islam is just about numbers to them, even though their prophet said the exact opposite.
So, our buddy here, Joseph Smith, declared in Jacob 1, this is supposedly God speaking, or the dictation from his magic rock. He would look at a rock and supposedly see the words appear before him. So these are the words that God has sent through his magical spells for him to write down. So this is a direct translation from God, his God, who's probably a cave demon, just like Muhammad's. And he declares that this is supposed to be in the history of the people who are in the New World. And now it came to pass that the people of Nephi, under the reign of the second king, began to grow hard in their hearts and indulge themselves somewhat in wicked practices. I love that, indulge themselves somewhat. Such goofy phrasing. Anyway, and wicked practices, such as like unto David of old, desiring many wives and concubines, and also Solomon, his son. So, wicked practices, desiring many wives and concubines. And in the next verse, this is some fake prophet standing up and berating the people with words from God. But behold, but the word of God burdens me because of your grosser crimes. For behold, thus saith the Lord, these people begin to wax in iniquity. They understand not the scriptures, for they seek to excuse themselves in committing whoredoms because of the things which were written concerning David and Solomon his son. Behold, David and Solomon truly had many wives and concubines, which thing was abominable before me, saith the Lord. Now, Thaddeus, something that is abominable, is that something that God's going to change his mind on?
No, not a real God, not a real God who does it like, just change his opinion based on the sexual desires of his prophet, at least.
Yep. So, he's saying it's abominable. Having many wives is abominable, and they use the excuse that David and Solomon had many wives to do this. And that's abominable, according to Joseph Smith. Wherefore, thus saith the Lord, I have led this people forth out of this land. This is like prophecy bingo. It really is. So bad. Of the land of Jerusalem, by the power of mine arm, that I might raise up unto me a righteous branch from the fruit of the loins of Joseph. That's supposed to be Joe Smith. Wherefore, I, the Lord God, will not suffer the people to do the like unto them of old. Wherefore, my brethren, hear me and hearken to the word of the Lord, for there shall not be any man among you. There shall not be any man among you have save it be one wife. Joe, that's not how you should have phrased that. But anyway.
Yeah, I was like, what? But
yeah,
Muhammad claimed he was prophesied in the Bible, but Joseph Smith was a bit smarter. He said, I was prophesied, but that got corrupted. Here it is again. Yep. See, I was prophesied, guys. I was prophesied. See, he actually goes above Muhammad because Muhammad didn't know our scriptures were supposedly corrupted. His followers had to figure that out a couple hundred years later, whereas Joseph Smith from the beginning says that our scriptures are corrupted and says that he's not affirming the Christian scriptures. Interesting. So he's one-upping Muhammad, I think.
Yep. and concubines he shall have none. For I, the Lord God, delight in the chastity of women, and whoredoms are an abomination before me. I'm not sure what that has to do with the chastity of women, because really the whoring here is the men. They're men whores. But whatever. And whoredoms are an abomination before me, thus saith the Lord of hosts. Wherefore, this people shall keep my commandments, and saith the Lord of hosts, or cursed be the land for their sakes. So if you don't have only one wife and no concubines, you will be cursed, right? For if I will, saith the Lord of hosts, raise up a seed unto me, I will command my people. Otherwise they shall hearken unto these things. So he gave himself an out then because he was already messing with Eliza Winters on the side. So, you must do this. This is my command. But if I want to, I will raise up a seed unto me, which is just a really odd phrase, but whatever. And otherwise, you listen to this. So listen to this thing that I have declared about what is eternally right and wrong, what is abominable or not, unless I happen to have somebody else who says differently.
Uh-huh. I mean, we can't worry about that. I mean, if there's a difference of opinion, I mean, let me take a super chat while you're paused here from Holy Joe. Holy Joe. What a name. What a name.
Brothers and sisters, why to lose this great opportunity? Remember, when the person is on his deathbed, the last minute, he will ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to be delayed for 1 second to do what? Not to pray, not to do other things, but to give sadaqah, because sadaqah you can give it just like this, yeah, in 1 second.
Perfect username for today, I guess. But thank you for giving your sadaqah. If you combine the sexual strength of Muhammad and Jojo together, would you have double the strength of 30 men? So 60 men, I suppose. No, I guess each one would have their own 30. I don't know if you can just really like combine them. Of course, that's nothing compared to the sexual strength that you have in jhana, though. Right there, everyone has a sexual strength of hundreds of men. Oh man, of course, no one cares about what women desire anywhere ever in these religions.
Yep, these are religions for perverts, for disgusting perverted men, and so this is what is taught. And yes, in Islam, rape is absolutely allowed. Rape happens very often. Every time Muslims show up in a country, they rape women. Because they are Muslim and they have no self-control, because they're taught not to have self-control, because they're debased, degraded, perverted by their religion into something worse than the natural man actually is, which is pretty remarkable. So you have like the natural man at like a 4, and you have Muslims at like a 1 in terms of human decency.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, he's saying it himself, right? Islam is religion for strong, healthy men.
And he thinks
teaches
that
us
men,
just to constantly desire to have sex with anything that moves.
Yep.
And sometimes dead things that aren't moving.
So again, no trip to Mecca is complete without what? Sex with a camel, right? I have sex with a camel every time you go on Hajj. Like, what kind of system do you have where that's a saying? You guys are perverts. I mean, you're so disgusting. So disgusting.
I mean, this is going to be shocking. This is going to be shocking here. But as a man, I've never had desire to have sex with an animal in any form, right? I've never had any desire whatsoever to have sex with animals. But in Islam, it's just normal. It's just normal for men to desire that. And since you're going on Hajj and you get all your sins forgiven when you kiss the magic stone, might as well take advantage. Might as well take advantage of the camels. Weird, healthy men in this religion.
Yeah. So, of course, our buddy Slow Joe, he decided to reverse all this and his deluded followers followed him. This was in June of 43, I believe, where he's like, and of course, remember, just like in Islam, the Quran is not enough. You have the dictations of Allah in the Quran, and then you have all these other things that Allah tells Muhammad to say or do, or even quotes from Allah, like direct quotes from Allah, that somehow don't make the cut in the Quran. So they're words of Allah, but they're not eternal words. Well, here you also have two categories. You have all of Joseph's, he told this linear story at one point in time, but of course he needs convenient revelations from God whenever he needs one. He needs his crystal ball, right? And so his crystal ball is just going, God sent me another revelation. And keep in mind that before he needed to look at his stone, but now he can just stand here and go, I dictate this thing to you. For behold, I reveal to you a new and everlasting covenant. And if you don't do this, you're damned. No one can reject it and be permitted to enter my glory. So if you have any kind of issue with this, you're going to hell. And continuing on, remember, this guy is not a good rhetorician, so he just repeats himself. So next verse, he's like, behold, I reveal to you a new and everlasting covenant, and if you abide not in that covenant, you are damned, for no one can reject the covenant and be permitted to enter my glory, which doesn't even have any meaning at all in the context of Mormonism. But as pertaining to the new and everlasting covenant, it was instituted for the fullness of my glory. Again, has no meaning. And he that receiveth a fullness thereof must and shall abide the law, or he shall be damned, saith the Lord God. So I got a question. How can this be his rule if this is some sort of like meta narrative of all the gods? There's just like this natural law over all the gods that dictates whether or not things happen. It doesn't come from one particular god of one particular planet. It's just sort of like a natural law sort of thing. But now apparently it does.
That's actually an interesting point. So when you become a god on your own planet, do you get to set the rules for the people or the spirit children, whatever, of that planet, or what?
No, because again, they still have to do the sealings. You can give people the authority to do these sealing things, and then that just carries off to the next generation. There's a
moral law,
right?
There's a moral law separate from the deity,
and
there is no absolute deity, right?
Right.
And Mormonism, there's not like an infinite. There's not like a creator god that first creates, and then there's all these other gods that come along later, right? There's no conception of that. Interesting for sure. But I did have to point out that Muhammad Afridi, who is a Pakistani man, says something very true here. He says in UK, white women sleep with Pakistani men. White women have no self-respect. Yeah, I agree. Any white woman who sleeps with a Pakistani man definitely has no self-respect. You know why? Because sleeping with a Pakistani man degrades yourself. It makes you disgusting. So that's what he said. He said that. Maybe he doesn't realize what he means or what the implication is, but he is saying that he is a disgusting man, and that any woman who would sleep with them is degrading herself. And I agree completely. Any woman that would sleep with you is definitely degrading herself. So I just wanted to point out that he's being truthful.
Very amusing. All right. So then he has his, you can marry women in this world. When they die, their marriage dissolves. It doesn't count for anything. And they're not bound by any law when they're out of the world. Then, when they're out of the world, they are appointed to be angels in heaven, which angels are ministering servants to minister for those who are worthy of a far more and exceeding an eternal weight of glory. So you become the servants of the gods. Why? Because the angels did not abide by law. So they can't be enlarged. By the way, this says that Moroni is inferior, did not abide God's law. He's bad. Nephi too apparently did not have an eternal sealing. And so he did not abide God's law and now is reduced to being a mere pathetic angel and does not get to be they remain separate and singly without exaltation in their saved condition to all eternity, and from henceforth are not gods, but are angels of God forever and ever. So again, all angels are dead people. Not all dead people are angels. And then you do it for covenant, for time, and all eternity, but it has to be by me and my word. It has to be through Joseph Smith. So if Joseph Smith's authority is not used for the sealing, then it also doesn't count. So, so then, if he's sealed to them by the Holy Spirit of promise, through Joseph Smith, who is the one who has his power, right? Then you get all of the through the one who has the keys of the priesthood, which is funny because Islam talks about the keys of the unseen. So again, stealing language. Then you come forth in the resurrection, and you get to be a god, and the next, and on your own planet, as long as you haven't done bad sins. Basically,
it's almost like these two prophets got inspiration from the same cave demon or something.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is. So Muhammad Afridi said, I invite you to be Muslim. Join us. You won't regret it.
Well, of course, you know that all women will regret it because you treat women like trash. So you're inviting him.
He didn't say add too many marries, right? He
He said him, but you see, he isn't a pervert, so it doesn't really have any appeal to him. So,
yeah. And besides that, I'm already more Muslim than you are because I actually submit to the Creator, whereas you submit to your penis. So I'm already a Muslim. I already submit to the Creator. You don't submit to anything but your own sexual desires, which isn't submission at all. So I'm already Muslim. You should join me and become a true Muslim who actually submits to the Creator.
And here's something funny. Before explicitly said that the many marriages of David and Solomon were evil, and that they were abominations, which is not actually a term that would have been used in the Old Testament for it. God didn't like it, and it was not good, and they were explicitly told not to multiply their wives. But abomination is terminology used for only a very few sins. That was not one of them. But, Joseph Smith was the one who decided to pick the word abomination when he made up his new fake scripture. And then we go to this revision, and he's like, oh, you need to go and do the works of Abraham. Enter into my law, and ye shall be saved. But if you enter not into my law, ye cannot receive the promise of my father, which he made unto Abraham. And then he says, God commanded Abraham, and Sarah gave Hagar to Abraham to wife. And why did she do this? Because this was a law. So now he's saying that God was the one who told Sarah to do this when God says the opposite of that in the Bible. God explicitly says, no, this was your idea. I'm not cool with it, and I do not recognize Ishmael as your son at all. It's like, was Abraham under condemnation? Nay, for I commanded him to do this, which is just absurdity, obscenity. Abraham received concubines, they bore him children, and it was accounted unto him for righteousness, which is extra obscene. Like having concubines being accounted to you as righteousness, just absurdity, obscenity, right? Because they were given unto him, and he abode in my law, as Isaac also and Jacob did none other things than that which they were commanded. So they have never sinned, they've only done what they're commanded. Wow. So anyway, They sit upon thrones. They are not angels, but are gods. And reversal, headspin. David also received many wives and concubines, and also Solomon and Moses, my servants, and also many others of my servants. And there's no indication that Moses had more than one wife at a time, by the way, when it's talked about his or more than one wife at all, because whenever his wife is talked about as being a Cushite, it's probably just a slur for the same woman he had married before, in context. From the beginnings of creation until this time, and nothing did they send, save in those things that they received not of me. His wives and concubines were given unto him of me by the hand of Nathan, my servant. And keep in mind that
wait. Hold on, Mary.
Yeah.
So are you? Is this saying that the prophets have no sin in a way? Not quite in the
Yep.
Islamic way exactly, but interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The only way in which he saved was Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is he's like, Solomon, or David, excuse me, doesn't get to have exaltation because of Bathsheba. He gets a lesser portion now because of that. But he's also misinterpreting Nathan, who was talking about how David had received the women of Saul, but he didn't actually marry any of them. He had control over the royal women, and having control over the royal women from the previous king is a legitimizing act in the border between the latter Bronze Age and the Iron Age. That's why when Solomon inherited, one of his half brothers wanted to have David's wife that he hadn't consummated the marriage with. So then it wouldn't be sinful necessarily because there wasn't a consummated marriage, but then he could get control of a wife of the king, and then he would have kind of this claim over the kingship, right? And so that kind of control over the women, having that authority over the women from the previous king and over the house of the women, it's a symbol of palace control and palace authority and the domain of the king kind of thing. So none of those women were his wives. His wives were listed by name, and none of Saul's wives were among them, just to be clear. But of course he misconstrues it because he doesn't care. Even if he understood it, he would not have cared. And
so we do have some on-topic sort of pushback from Logical Dawa. And he says, Prophet Muhammad had no sin because Allah forgave all his sins, therefore he became sinless. We believe when Allah forgives, that his forgiveness removes all sins. That's not the Islamic doctrine, Mr. Logical Dawa. You've created your own fake doctrine because you see the contradiction. You actually are smart, sort of. If you're really smart, you'd leave Islam. But you're smart enough to see the contradiction here. And you know why there's a contradiction? In the Quran, it says that Muhammad was forgiven of his sins. In the Hadith, Muhammad's constantly asking for forgiveness of his sins. He asks for forgiveness up to 100 times a day.
Yep.
There's no indication anywhere in the text that he's sinless. And then hundreds of years later, Muslims are having discussions with Christians. And Christians are like, why would we believe in Muhammad? He's a sinful prophet. Jesus was sinless. And then some genius is like, that's because all prophets are sinless, including Muhammad. Yep. So it's a totally made up doctrine. It has nothing to do with your text and your scripture. Unfortunately for you, the doctrine is not that Allah forgave his sins. It's that he was protected from sin and did not sin. That is the Islamic doctrine. And it applies to all the prophets, and not just to Muhammad. Problem is, it's not found in your text. So you've identified a problem, you found a solution, but it's not an Islamic solution. Congratulations, you've created your own religion and called it Islam, Mr. Logical Dawa.
Yep, and in that measure, all Muslims would be sinless. All Muslims in decent standing with the law would be sinless. It's not your doctrine. No,
Yep.
Nobody says that. Nobody's like, but all Muslims are sinless. So, nope. Logical Dawa. That is not what your doctrine is. Your doctrine is that he did not commit sins. Your doctrine is that that prophets do not commit major sins. That's it. That is your doctrine.
Yep.
If you want to lie about it, you can lie about it, but we're not going to take you seriously because it's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mr. Logical Dawa, he holds up one finger because that's how many people are in his religion. One. He has his own religion that he himself has invented, which he calls Islam, but has absolutely nothing to do with the Islamic doctrine. He just invents his own fake things.
It's called the impeccability of prophets, and it says explicitly that prophets commit no major sins.
Uh-huh.
So that's it. Try again. Logical Dawa, he forgives all Muslims their sins. So I don't know why you're, but Muhammad's sins are forgiven. It doesn't matter. All right. Back to the topic, away from the religion of one copium. So here, now we have that Joseph Smith has the power to bind on earth and seal in heaven, etc., 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 which is where we get the term sealings from. Joseph Smith is already claiming this power that he could seal things in heaven and all this stuff for a number of years. Interestingly, he seems to have made this up because of the previous scandals about his conduct with girls to deflect from it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, here he is. We seal people. And here's where he threatens Emma Smith that she's going to go to hell if she doesn't accept those things, and that she can't have multiple marriages. Now, here's the funny thing. Obviously, there are plenty of women who are having sex with multiple men because Joseph was marrying married women and having sex with them. So what does that mean for Emma? Who could she have sex with? Well, actually, she did say that she wanted to have sex with a particular man. And Joseph went to organize it for her. They were the publishers of the newspaper in Nauvoo. And the publisher and his wife went, "What the heck is this happening here? We're out of here," and left. And after that, Smith revealed this to say that God says you can't have another extra husband to bang Emma. So, yeah. There was also the problem that he had cooked up this theology then about sealing to one man in time, sealing to another man in time and eternity. Like how can you seal it? Like he had all these issues that he had created for himself, which he never actually coherently resolved. But yeah, if she doesn't just shut up and not ask to bang another man and possibly be humiliatingly rejected, he's going to send her to hell. Bet you didn't know about her trying to have sex with the local newspaper editor and him turning her down. Yeah. But what's really funny is a year after this, Joseph Smith, during his testimony after he was arrested, declared that what a thing it is for a man to be accused of committing adultery and having 7 wives when I can only find one. I am the same man and as innocent as I was 14 years ago, meaning not innocent at all. And here he is speaking about the time he was arrested for messing with Josiah Stowell's daughters. The fact that he wasn't charged doesn't mean that he didn't do anything. It means that there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. There wasn't enough to say that he actually committed a crime. And that could mean because they were entirely willing, or because there weren't enough people to give testimony against him, or they didn't want to make it public and put it all out there. Like there could be any number of reasons why he was not actually charged. and I can prove them all perjurers. So he's giving testimony, declaring that he can prove other people to be perjurers as he commits perjury himself.
Hey, takes one to
Amazing.
know one. Takes
Amazing.
one to know one.
So they both also had servant troubles. Muhammad had multiple rape slaves. He had at least 3, 2 of whose names we know. He also had Barakah, who is also basically a rape slave. So that makes at least 4 that he's having intercourse with. Mary the Copt caused a lot of troubles for the community because it made Muhammad a big fat liar, because he had made a promise, an oath, and he broke his oath because he is a liar. And Allah says, it's cool. You aren't allowed to make any oaths that I don't say that you can make. So you can break your oath that you have made. You've made promises. You can break them. Promises don't hold for you. You can be a liar. And obviously that caused issues with the community too, because this whole like you can just be a liar thing is it's kind of interesting. And the idea that Allah made Muhammad lust to show that he can lie as long as Allah has not endorsed the statement. So any statement that Allah hasn't endorsed, he can later go back on, is just wild. Absolutely wild. And people realized it was wild at that time too. Joseph Smith had 3 servant girls that he got in trouble with. Probably heard of 2 of them. Third one is more obscure. So first one, he attempted to seduce or actually raped a servant girl named Miss Hill, who was angry because of his actions and because of the rumors that his behavior toward her had started in the town. And this was while his wife was having a baby or was actively postpartum. She informed Emma of what he'd done, and Joe admitted to Harris that what she said after first denying it, said that it was more true than not. And later, 1832, he said, it's more true than not what's been said of me. So
I just wanted to give everyone an update here. Logical Dawa and Muhammad Afridi are now both calling each other fake Muslims. So very good. They see that they disagree on some things, but they both call that true Islam. Just wanted to point that out. Super chat from Appy Frenzy here.
Every single person that donates, inshallah, you're going to get a reward. You know what? Forget donate. Invest. You invest in your hereafter. Forgive me for pranking you guys, but I had to. Yeah, I'm the king of clickbait. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Ali Dimwit. Appy says, God bless you, Brother Thaddeus and Sister Mary, for this information onto false prophets. Thank you very much for that. And a reminder that we have a super chat goal of 10 super chats today. We're at 3 right now. Back to you, Mary.
It's really funny. They're arguing over Jibril being the spirit of Allah, because very obviously he's not in the Quran. It's very obvious that there is the angels who are coming with the Holy Spirit, but that is the Holy Spirit, something other than angels. In various passages, he's something other than angels. But the commentators realized that they got caught with their pants down, because this really is very clearly a Christian theology of who the Holy Spirit is. So they're like, it's Jibril. Yeah, it's Jibril. Just trust us, bro. It's Jibril. Whereas Muhammad himself said that this is something that you cannot know about, and Allah has forbidden you to know it. So they're running around saying that they know about stuff that Allah said that you can't know about, which is pretty funny. All right. So, the second girl was Clarissa Reed, who was 18, and she was a servant girl in his house. She left in 1833 to marry someone else. She testified to her son that Joseph Smith tried to convince her that she could be one of his wives. So he was mucking with her as well. And talked about how he tried to seduce her. Fanny Ward is a famous one. She was between the ages of 16 and 19. he was having sex with her in the barn when they were found by Emma. Emma kicked her out in the middle of the night, which of course started conversations as to why a girl was kicked out of the house in the middle of the night. And she told Crowley that this was because she caught him having sex, and she told several other people. He's like he was having sex with her, and this caused great fitna because there was an eyewitness to his adultery, and that caused a number of church splits. People were very, very angry about this, that he was messing with girls. She was not a polygamous wife in any sense of, I mean, he might have said to her, you can be my secret extra wife. It's okay. God said that this is fine. God says that you're spiritually married to me. In which case, you would also have to include Miss Hill and possibly even Eliza Winters, because she was also, he's not just saying nothing to these girls. He's like, oh, God says it's good. So what's really interesting is both of them have cases of incest directly linked to adoption. So Muhammad famously married his adopted son's wife and did incest with her. Fanny Alger was adopted by Emma and Joseph Smith before he seduced or raped her while she was a live-in servant. So the first sealing ceremony, the first version of the sealing ceremony, seems to have been like a spiritual adoption to make someone your daughter. And it seems very likely that he invented this because he was like, have your daughter live with me and become my servant girl. And people are like, you kind of have a history with other servant girls, messing with them and doing sexual stuff with them, right? Because we have at least 2 servant girls who have left his service because he was trying to mess with them. And he's like, but I will make her my daughter. Through a ceremony in the church, she will be sealed to me as a daughter. And this was misconstrued as evidence of polygamous marriage by some later Mormons, but it's very clear this is not it, because Crowley, who hated polygamy and thought it was an abomination, he had his servant girl also sealed to him as a daughter and did not mess with her. And he thought, oh, this is kind of like a way to be like above reproach, because you wouldn't cast an eye on someone with a daughter, right? So we will make servant girls our daughters, and then we will be above reproach because no one would sexually mess with their own daughter. So that's immediately what Joseph Smith did after gaining the trust through going, oh, I will adopt her as my daughter, and then bang her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, this is actually pretty crazy if you think about it.
Yes!
I mean, how many men in world history have had sex with their adopted daughters? Not a huge number for sure. And yet somehow that these 2 prophets both do the same thing. Very strange stuff.
Logical dawa. You accept a hadith. Muhammad was a pagan. He made sacrifices to a lot in Taif, and he also named at least one of his children a pagan name before he decided he was a prophet. He named one of his children after a pagan god. So yes, he was a pagan, and that's why
Muhammad
it says in the Quran that he needs to stay away from idols. Why? Because he wasn't staying away from idols. He needed to be told to. He was found wandering. Wandering always means off the path, straying. He was found straying, and Allah guided him. Thus, he was a pagan. And then says that Allah guided me the straight path, but he actually remained a pagan in reality. All right, so relative lack of children is also a point of interest. So Muhammad was probably infertile for life, but he actually wanted kids. He probably didn't, again, I think that his children that were attributed to him are actually the genetic offspring of Abu Talib and Mary the Cop's son, is the child of the other Egyptian who came with her, who was probably her secret husband. Keep in mind that in Christianity at this time, you could marry by an oath to one another. You didn't need witnesses. Your oath to one another was enough and you were married. So she was probably like married to him, whether or not she was before they came there. Afterwards, she was and had his child. As Ali and Umar thought had happened, which is why they chased him with the sword, right?
Sorry to interrupt you, Mary, but
Yep.
this is too good. So according to logical Dawa, astray doesn't mean pagan.
That's hilarious.
So you could be astray and be a Muslim, apparently, or whatever he thinks that Muhammad was before he brought Islam.
Yeah, you can be astray and you can be a Muslim. So everyone know now that Muslims are astray. According to logical Dawa, that is logical, that Muslims are the astray people. Okay, so Joseph Smith, he had his side pieces abort his children if they had any who were plausibly his. This is well established in testimony that women in early Mormonism were getting abortions left and right. Whenever they would have all of their plural marriages, multiple marriages, whatever, and the child was inconvenient, they'd kill the kid. Because Muhammad and Joseph Smith both taught the same thing about the soul, that the soul pre-existed and then was stuffed into a body later on. And this pre-existent soul that gets stuffed into a body doesn't get stuffed into a body, in Joseph's view, until birth. So you can abort as many kids as you want. So they're killing kids left and right. Just want to be clear. So people go, but Joseph Smith, no DNA tests have traced back to him. Yeah, but you know what? A number of women said that this child is Joseph Smith's. So they were also having sex with their husband at the time, but they just chose to believe that it was Joseph's. So they didn't have a reason to abort those children. But he just, if there was a child that was clearly his, he ordered an abortion and they had an abortion. That's it. So it's potential that Fanny Alger, when she left, she was pregnant. Eliza Winters, again, she had apparently had a bastard, could not sue on the idea that she did not have an illegitimate child because the facts were against her. He also likely used either coitus interruptus or a condom, and yes, condoms existed then, they just were not terrifically effective, which would have made it less likely for him to have children then. Now, Josephine was attributed to him by Sylvia Porter Lyon, but it was DNA testing seems to trace her back to her legal husband, well, her actual husband, rather than just her Mormon extra bonus side man against her own testimony. Now, both Joseph Smith and Muhammad liked them really unusually young. Now, this little border here, this green stripe shows 89% of 1830s and 1840s couples would fall in the age range here, based on the age of marriage of the man and the age of marriage of the woman relative to the man. So if the man is 20, then 89% of marriages would have the wife be between the ages of
looks like about 18.
18, yes. 18 to it was, like I said, it was really rare for people younger than 18 to marry at this time.
Yeah.
People delusionally think that it was common, but it was really rare.
Like
you had to be
24, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 18 to 24. So if the man's 20, woman's going to be 18 to 24, and it kind of stays in a band where the age of the woman above the man's decreases over time generally and becomes less common.
Mhm.
But the age gap is not terribly commonly greater than 5 years younger. For a little while, it dips down slightly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like there might be a period where it gets as much as 6 years, but
Yeah.
and then above looks like it's never more than 4, and then by the time you get really old, it's more like 2 maximum above.
Yeah. Yep. So, and this again is 89% of couples. So, very heavy majority of couples will be within this age range. So, you might notice a pattern that, yeah, there are some that are extra old, most of whom were married for reasons of, like, Joseph didn't have to have sex with any of these women. He didn't have to give them any money. He could just marry somebody's elderly aunt for eternity to make someone happy, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
notice how incredibly
exactly,
young
right?
they
You
were.
can just
Right.
you can just like do the, well, you don't even have to marry, right? You can just do like the binding spell or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, it's a sealing ceremony. So he has a sealing ceremony with the old single women who don't want to be left out and not be exalted, and they know for sure that Joseph Smith's going to get his exaltation, so they'll get their exaltations too, on the basis of his exaltation, and so they want to be sealed to him as these old ladies, and so he'll seal to them, but that doesn't mean that he sleeps with them. However,
Correct, right? Yeah.
there's no reason to think that he's not sleeping with every single young lady. Every single young lady, especially the ones that he specially pressures and tries to manipulate and threaten into letting him marry them. So there are some retroactive Corey Heron members when he was telling people, God's cool with this, but probably hadn't developed his theology yet. The first one actually was quite a bit older. I think he just tried it out on an older, particularly stupid woman. He found somebody who was super, super gullible. And that's the diamond there that is the concurrently married orange diamond, that first diamond that's above. But she wasn't terrifically older than the kind of age gap that was typical. She was only very slightly at the edge of it. And he wedded and bedded her like immediately after meeting her in far west Missouri. Then later on, he got her husband sent away on missions, which is a common pattern. Muhammad liked to send people away on missions whenever he wanted to bang their wives. And finally got sealed to her much later. So he was banging her long before he got any sealings to her, because this stuff was happening before he had introduced these sealings at all. He just said, God approves of this. It's cool. Louisa Beeman was also a secret from Emma. So this is the first one that we have that have any evidence for sealing is Zena. And her husband knew about the sealing, but probably didn't know that he was banging his new hot wife because he's a sucker.
Let me pause you for just a second here. Lay wants me to answer this question. It's in multi-parts here. Can you show how the Quran is contradictory when it says having too many partners spreads STDs, but Muhammad has many wives and slaves? It's possible he got an STD. Well, first of all, the Quran doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't.
It definitely doesn't say anything like that. If a Muslim claimed that, they're just making up a non-existent scientific miracle or something along those lines. Although it wouldn't even really be a scientific miracle, because obviously people had some conception of how diseases were spread and had some conception that sex could spread diseases. Second part, is it possible that Muhammad got an STD? Of course it's possible. I mean, we can't say definitively one way or another. Part two of the question, what I'm trying to ascertain is, we know scientifically having many partners causes STDs. Well, that's not true. It doesn't, strictly speaking, cause. It's just going to increase the amount
the
of
chances.
spread of STDs, right? The way you're going to get an STD is if you have sex with someone who already has it. Whether that's the only person you ever have sex with or not, you're still going to get it from that person if they have it. With some degree of probability. It's not necessarily 100% probability, but it's pretty high. It's pretty good chance that if you have sex with someone with an STD, you'll catch it. Muhammad had many partners. That's true. He's having many partners outside of marriage that causes STDs. Again, what technically causes it is someone has it and they spread it to you. Having many partners is obviously going to increase your risk because you're having sex with many people instead of just one, but it doesn't, strictly speaking, cause it. And then again, there is no verse in the Quran about contracting STDs. That part's just false. So there's nothing to talk about there.
And then she linked it to him having maybe one daughter and a son who died. Yeah, I don't think that I think he was just sterile from youth. I don't think that he contracted an STD in later life and then had fertility problems. And he was attributed 4 daughters in his lifetime. The Shia just tried to get rid of the other 3 daughters because they want to make Fatima more special. So no, I think that he was sterile for his whole life, and I think that those children are belong to what's her face? They belong to Abu Talib and Khadijah, and there is no at this time STD that's very likely to make men sterile. The STDs that there were at this time could make women sterile, pelvic inflammatory disease, but chlamydia and so on doesn't typically make men sterile. It just makes women sterile.
So improbable, and the fact that he has so many partners and so few attributed children does suggest that he, at minimum, had difficulty with fertility, if not was completely infertile, and whatever children he's attributed aren't actually his. So Mary has a very good point there. It's not like he was using protection or something to prevent getting women
no, he wanted
becoming
to,
pregnant.
He desperately
wanted his women. Yeah, exactly. He wanted his women to be pregnant. So there definitely seems to be something wrong with his functioning, but we can't say for sure exactly what that might be.
Yep. All right.
But some people are just naturally infertile, right? That's Mary's point, that some people are just naturally infertile.
And I think he had
hypospadias
because that ties into the fact that they were making fun of him for getting pee on himself.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, incest is best for penis prophets very often. They like doing things that are labeled as incestuous by the culture that they're in because it gets them off. Right. They keep in the family. And Muhammad, of course, Zainab bint Jahash again, and he loved the first cousins. He was very fond of his first cousins to quite a spectacular degree. Now, Joe married a woman and her sister, which was forbidden in the Old Testament even for them to be married at the same time. Married them at the same time. And then he also married a woman who had a husband already, and then married her mom, who was also married, obviously, one month later. 23-year-old and a 47-year-old. Yeah. So he also married Sarah Lawrence and Maria Lawrence in the same month. They were 17 and 19. So he had 3 different sets of very closely related people whom he was having intercourse with. And there's a little bit more later on, but I'm not putting it right here. So now we are...
So hold on, I got to address this from
Yeah.
logical Darwin here, because the irony is just off the charts here, right? So he says Christianity is illogical, but the reason why is because God sent the Messiah to a small little land, and everyone must believe to be saved. Meanwhile, what does he believe? That God sent
Muhammad as the last prophet with
Muhammad,
only the,
and everyone must believe in him to be saved.
and
Muhammad
not
from
only
a small
that,
little land.
Not only that, but Allah can only listen to you in Arabic because his Allah is not capable of understanding other languages in prayer. You have to use the magic spell language. So your God's so stupid, he can't even understand prayer that's been translated. And that's your.
And again, he says many islands have no idea. Yeah, many islands have no idea about Muhammad or Islam. They practice polytheism.
Yeah.
What's your point? Exactly.
I know, right? And notice that he'll claim, oh, everybody else got a prophet. No, they didn't. They absolutely did not get a prophet. Nobody's ever heard of
zero evidence of that.
There's zero evidence of that. Muhammad just pulled it out of his butt, and it didn't happen. All right. So again, here is an imputation of incest. People believed that Muhammad was also heading toward officializing incest with a woman and her daughter. I honestly believe that he married Salama to have access to her daughter because he knew that she would not, he had already, so he could not have married the daughter officially because her father is his foster brother. So he couldn't have access to this little girl except through marrying her mother. And the reason why there was a rumor that he wanted to marry her mother, marry her, is because of his behavior toward her. Salama saw him doing things with her and was like, oh, he's going to marry her. But he didn't because he knew that that would definitely tear up the Ummah. They would not follow him, having married the mom to avoid marrying the daughter of a foster brother, and then marrying the daughter on top of that, and then declaring, Allah said want me to do this because he wants his prophets to do this. He knew that that wouldn't fly. But the fact that these women, two of his wives, believed that he aimed to marry his stepdaughter tells you about what he was doing with his stepdaughter. There are also very, very, very questionable ahadith about his behavior toward his daughter. He would be in the habit of coming into the house of his daughter and Ali at night, Fatima, and would get in bed with them. You don't get in bed with your adult daughter. I'm sorry, you just don't. Right? She's in bed with her husband. You don't get in bed with her. That's weird.
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely weird.
Fatima's level of hatred toward Aisha is congruent with Aisha having replaced Fatima as daddy's special little girl because Fatima got too old, bluntly. So there are all kinds of questionable things with Muhammad. They also married widows out of quote-unquote pity. Mo married Habiba. He was really doing it to humiliate his enemy, who was her dad. And one of the first ones that Joe did was Agnes Moulton Coolbrith Smith. She was not married to one of his Smiths. She was married to a different Smith. And you know, this chart, these are married widows out of pity for a lot of these upper ones that he did just to make them happy, but didn't actually sleep with them. So they both had fake revelations to make women feel special. Muhammad said that Jibreel brought me Aisha. You know, you were shown to me twice. You, Aisha, were shown to me twice in my dream before I married you. I saw an angel carrying you in a silken piece of cloth, and I said to him, uncover her, and behold, it was you. And I said to myself, if this is from Allah, then it must happen. Then you were shown to me, the angel carrying you in a silken piece of cloth. And I said to him, uncover her, and behold, it was you. If this is from Allah, then this must happen. So God has ordained that I need to have sex with this little girl, and that's why I did it with you. Joe told a girl that, oh, when you were 12 years old, God told me that I was going to marry you. But didn't bother to stop you from getting married to another man because he liked to cuckold the men who followed him. That really got his rocks off, to humiliate them sexually that way and make them think that was okay. And married her 11 years later when she was 23. And both of these were revealed later to justify actions that, like, they weren't revealed at the moment that they supposedly happened, because neither one actually happened. Now, here are some stories about how Joseph Smith manipulated women. So, in 1842, Smith sought an interview with me and said, I have a message from you. I have been commanded of God to take another wife, and you are that woman. So God has commanded you to marry me, basically. He asked me if I believed him to be a prophet. He fully explained to me the principle of plural or celestial marriage that would prove an everlasting blessing to my father's house. Joseph told her to pray that the grave would kindly receive me, that I might find rest on the bosom of my dear mother. Why should I be chosen from among the daughters, Father? I am only a child in years and experience. She's 17. She doesn't want to marry him. Why should I be chosen? So she prayed in the agony of her soul, and she felt like she was forced to, because God said that she's supposed to marry him. The marriage was not a love matter. Did not love him. At least on my part, it was not. But simply the giving up of myself as a sacrifice to establish the grand and glorious principle that God had revealed to the world. And this poor woman is probably damned, because she followed a false prophet who manipulated her and abused her. So,
yep, most likely.
A number of the women, by the way, just
hold on, Mary.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to take this real quick from Lay. They do this pedophilia, but Muhammad was not a prolific pedophile. He abused one young girl. Oh, only one? Well, I've only murdered one person. You see, I should get off. No one should criticize me because I only murdered one person.
What on earth?
Not very good logic. Not very good logic.
Yes,
there,
that makes it if you have attraction to a prepubescent girl, you are a pedophile, no matter how many other women you bang. If you bang 530 women and only one of them is a little girl, you're still a pedophile. By the clinical definition. So,
well, I mean, strictly speaking, you have to be attracted, right?
Yeah.
You have to be attracted. You could, in theory, have sex with a young girl without actually wanting to do it. In which case, I guess you would not technically be a pedophile. But Muhammad clearly wanted to do it, so that's irrelevant anyway. And then Morke says, what is the minimum age for a man to have sex with a girl according to Sharia? No predefined minimum. There is a standard. She has to be big enough to bear the weight of the man.
And you can just guess what that is. And if you have an oopsie and destroy her, that's fine too. So.
Well, I mean, it's not quite fine, but.
Well, I mean, there's just you just get the recompense. There's no particular punishment for it.
Right.
It's just an
only penalty is financial.
Yep. All right. So, Salama did not want to marry Muhammad. Her husband was killed. She says she didn't want to remarry. Muhammad came to her and said, I want to marry you. And she said, no, I have a daughter, a young daughter, and I am of jealous temperament. So I want to spend my time, my attention on my daughter. And I don't want to be married to a man who had other wives because I'm jealous. And Muhammad said, I will pray to Allah that you may be free of the responsibility of this young daughter. What, that she die or get married off as a small child or something? I don't know. And I will supplicate Allah to do away with her jealous temperament. Yeah, that didn't work. The entire reason that you have the Sunni Shia split is this jealousy of Salama, which combined together with Fatima's disdain for Aisha and became that which separated the Sunni from the Shia. So another example of Muhammad's successful manipulation, Juwayriya had been taken after a battle, and she pleaded her case, supplicated to be freed. She's a daughter of a chieftain and used to command, but now she found herself in a helpless position. From a throne made of gold, she had fallen to dust. How could she possibly live life as a slave? Please take notice of this pitiful condition and allow me, just to be clear, she's asking to be freed through ransom. She wants to be ransomed. But Muhammad goes, would you rather, how about you marry me and become a free woman by marrying me, and then I will give all kinds of benefits to your family. So I won't execute your family, allow people to be freed. Give yourself up and you will have benefits. And so she took this offer. So this is the whitewashed version of it, but basically it's, oh, you want to be ransomed and not be a sex slave? Well, how about you be my wife, and then everybody will treat your people better. So now we're going to talk about women who told the prophets to take a long walk off a short pier. First one rejected old Joe, and she mostly resisted him. So she testified in the spring of 1844, plural marriage was introduced to me by my parents from Joseph Smith, asking their consent and a request to me to be his wife. Imagine, if you can, my feeling to be a plural wife, something I never thought I could be. I knew nothing of such religion and could not accept it. Neither did I then. I told Joseph I had a sweetheart. His name was Whiting, and I expected to marry him. He, however, was left by the wayside. He could not endure the persecutions and the hardships. I told the prophet I thought him a wonderful man and leader, but I wanted to marry my sweetheart. After Joseph Smith's death, I was visited by some of his most intimate friends who knew of his request and explained to me this religion, counseling me to accept his wishes, for now he was gone and could do no more for himself. Basically, he can't bang you here, but he really wanted to be sealed to you, so why don't you get sealed to him for all eternity? So basically, whenever she says your father, she's talking to one of the sons of Joseph Smith. So he was she ends up being sealed to prophet for all eternity, and her husband was married to her just for time. And so later she said that Verona, in eternity, I want the man that was the father of my children, and he was a good husband and father. I lived with him and loved him. So she doesn't want to be married with Joseph Smith for all eternity, but she kind of got forced into it. She also got forced into plural marriage, but with someone else, because it was just, she got bullied into it. But she resisted Joseph, at least, and wasn't taken advantage by him, but was taken advantage by other men. So Lee, Blythe, you cannot call out Sharia. You cannot say that's wrong if you are Muslim. You just can't. You can't get people to change their minds. Muhammad taught that to be a Muslim, you must follow the laws, and Sharia is just the laws of being Muslim. So that's a non-starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you may be able to convince some random person to pretend to be Muslim while not following it, but they won't actually be a Muslim, right? They won't actually be following the religion of Islam. They'll just take a label that doesn't really accurately describe their beliefs. Sharia is essential to Islam. If you ask any Muslim from a Muslim nation, they'll tell you as much. They'll tell you with pride how Islam is a complete system of living that tells you how to do everything all the time. And this is why it's such a beautiful system. So what you're saying is we should convince Muslims that Islam is wrong, but we shouldn't do that by telling them that Islam is wrong. We should do that by telling them the ideas of Islam are wrong or something. I mean, it's kind of a nonsensical position, to be perfectly honest. We do have a new character in the chat who's been here a few times before. Jalal Hassan says, there is no Muhammad in the Quran. Muhammadan is not a person, but an attribute of the Quran, which means highly and often much praised one. But you keep on lying. Yeah, I keep on lying. I'm the one that's teaching that Muhammad's a prophet, right? I'm the one that's teaching Muhammad is a true individual who brought the religion of Islam to the world. You have like a belief that, I don't know, maybe like 10 people in the whole world hold.
Yep.
And yet you come in here to criticize us for lying about what the Quran teaches or what Islam teaches, when in fact you should be going to all the Muslims and asking them why they're lying about Muhammad being the prophet of Islam.
Yep. It's hilarious. All right. So, and Muhammad is the pattern for perfect behavior for all time. You cannot be a Muslim and reject child marriage. You can't. You are rejecting Muhammad as the perfect pattern of behavior. And so you're saying that one of the fundamental beliefs of Islam is indefensible. So, anyway, yeah,
Jalal
it is
Hassan,
not
I'm
even
not the
the
one
hadith.
saying to follow the hadith. You want to say they're all fabricated lies? Fine. I'm not the one saying they're true.
The
That's
Quran
Muslim.
itself puts no minimum age for marriage and consummation. It assumes that you will be having intercourse with prepubescent little girls. The Quran describes how you should divorce the prepubescent little girls that you've had sex with. All right, so Nancy Rigdon is the most famous escape, and she made quite a good escape. So he locked her in a room with him alone and proposed polygamous marriage. Nancy said no, and I will alarm the neighbors if you don't let me leave. Basically, I'll start screaming that you're trying to rape me. A few days later, the secretary of Joseph Smith delivered a letter to Nancy explaining that that which is wrong under one circumstances may be and often is right under another. So this letter is regarded by church leaders as being written by Joseph Smith. It is authentic. It's been quoted by numerous church leaders, including in General Conference. For example, here's one. Here's a person who was the assistant president of the church at the time that he wrote this. He recorded that Nancy went down. Joe was there. Joe Smith, your prophet, Joe Smith, took her into a private room, locked the door, and commenced by telling her that he had long loved her and he had asked the Lord for her and that it was his holy will that he should have her. He said that she would alarm the neighbors if he did not open the door and let her out. He did so and requested Mrs. Hyde to explain matters to her. Joe swore her to eternal secrecy. Mrs. Hyde told her these things looked strange to her at first, that she would become more reconciled on mature reflection. Miss Richards replied, I never shall. Joe agreed to write her and did so in a few days' time through Dr. Richards. The letter is now safe in the hands of her friends. I've seen it, so has her father and various other persons. Joseph Fielding Smith published this statement from Nancy's brother about the encounter. It happened this way. Nancy had gone to the church meeting, the cult meeting being held in a grove near the temple lot. They do lots of meetings in groves because they're pagans. Anyway, on which the Mormons were there erecting a temple, and an old lady friend, that's Miranda Johnson Hyde, so this is Nancy Johnson Hyde, the one that he was interfering with when she was only 16 and was a servant girl, who lived alone, invited her, which Nancy did. When they got to the house and had taken their bonnets off, the old lady, now she's being a procurer. So his prostitute is now turning into a procuress for his sexual desires, began to talk to her about the new doctrine of polygamy, which was then being taught, telling Nancy during the conversation that it was a surprise to her when she first heard it too. But she's come to believe that it's true. Joseph Smith comes in, old lady left the room, and door got locked. Joseph made the proposal. Nancy said, get out of here. If she ever married, she would marry a single man or none at all. Took her bonnet, went home, leaving Joseph at that old lady's home. So there are also women who escaped Muhammad in rather similar ways. So there was a lady from Bani Juan who was in a lovely garden. She had a good deal of money. She was a wealthy woman, and Muhammad was running after her to try to secure her and her wealth. And he comes into the garden, and he and she's there with her nurse. And when Muhammad came to her, he said to her, "Give me yourself in marriage as a gift." And she said, "Can a princess give herself in marriage to a peasant?" Ordinary man is a very polite translation. She called him a peasant. The prophet raised his hand to pat her so she might become tranquil. Well, raise the hand. Raise the hand. So she thought he was going to slap her because he raised his hand in such a way. I have never seen anyone raise their hand to pat someone and have the reaction that they're being about to be slapped. Like, I've never thought someone who's reaching out to pat me is actually going to slap me, but here she's supposed to be misinterpreting it. But anyway, she says, "I seek refuge with Allah from you." And he says, "You have sought refuge with one who gives refuge." And give her 2 white linen dresses to wear and let her go back to her family, like he left because she sought refuge from him. So illogical dawah, incoherent dawah. The Quran shows how to divorce prepubescent girls. You only have to have an iddah for girls, for women, for wives that you have had intercourse with. It's about the iddah of women that you have had sex with.
So his argument is, see, it only tells you how to divorce them because people had already married prepubescent girls before the Quran came. That's what he's trying to suggest.
No.
But where does the Quran tell you that not to marry prepubescent girls exactly? Logical dawah. And according to the standard understanding of how Islam works, or how anything works, if the Quran doesn't tell you something is wrong, then it's obviously allowed. And you obviously believe this because you're using the internet, and the Quran doesn't tell you how to use the internet. So unless it tells you not to marry prepubescent girls, then it obviously allows for that possibility. And the fact that Allah sends this revelation on how to divorce them without telling you anywhere not to marry them is pretty clear indication that he does think you can and perhaps even should be marrying prepubescent girls.
Muhammad himself made it very clear that he considered the marriage to a virgin to be of a girl who is so young that she would be incapable of caring for children. He has said that. And obviously, he has used a term for, and when he was asked about the divorce of the prepubescent girls, remember the Sunnah of Muhammad includes everything he says and everything that he fails to remark upon. So the fact that he failed to remark upon the fact that you're banging little girls means that he approves of it. That's the way Islam works.
Okay, I think this guy's just trolling, honestly. He says, in Quran Islam, we don't have prophets. So not only is Muhammad not actually a prophet in the Quran, no one is, right? Jesus isn't, or Isa isn't a prophet in the Quran. Joseph isn't
I don't think he's actually read the Quran.
Isn't a prophet.
You have not read the Quran. Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, obey his messenger and those who are in authority over you. His messenger allows...
Wait, what? How does that...
It doesn't. Because Muhammad endorsed child marriage through his failure to speak on it when it was brought up, to speak against it.
Well, I enter his example.
Therefore, and by his example. So you are obeying Muhammad when you have sex with children, as long as you have paid for access to their private parts.
Yeah, this is the worst argument I've ever heard.
I don't even know why you're saying this. I don't know why you're lying to us, because you know it's not true. We're not going to religion of one. I don't think that.
I think that Jalal Hassan might be more of a Muslim than Logical Dawah. Logical Dawah just takes whatever he wants to believe and pretends that's what the Quran teaches. You see, it says obey Allah. That means it prohibits child marriage because I am Allah and I say child marriage is wrong.
No, he says that in the U.S., because there are minimum ages of marriage in lots of places, Muslims have to obey this. per Islam, which is hilarious.
Oh, so American law is higher.
American law keeps Muslims from being disgusting, revolting perverts like they want to be. So if you followed your prophet, you would be revolting pervert who would have sex with 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. You would have sex with any child. But thankfully, there are some countries that prevent you from actually following your law, and somehow you think that you're supposed to follow them because you're like just projecting that. When in reality, you guys are taking multiple wives in countries where you're not allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. You're not following the laws. The only laws that you are following are those where you think you might get in trouble and cause issues for other Muslims if you get caught.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, logical dawa.
None of that.
Logical dawa.
That is hilarious.
If a law of a country tells you that you must worship some random pagan deity, are you telling me that the Quran tells you to worship that pagan deity? Is that actually your argument? He's saying that like his follow-up comment was, you have to follow those who are authority over you. But that's not what the verse quoted. He said the verse quoted was, obey Allah and his messenger, which is Muhammad, right? It's not telling you to obey any authority on anything whatsoever. But you know what? Since you believe you have to follow any authority, I am the authority of this chat. I have
the standard narrative.
I think we have to try it first.
Thank you, Demeanor. Anyway, I'm the authority of this chat. I have complete and total authority over you. You said that you have to submit to me. You have to. So I am going to order you under my authority to curse Allah and Muhammad right here and right now. And if you don't do it, then we'll know that you were just lying about obey those who have authority over you. I have complete authority over to you. And there will be a punishment if you don't do what I say. That's what authority means, right?
Yep. And he's like, oh, Allah knew that he could rely on Christians to keep Muslims from being the perverts they wanted to be. Allah knew that there would come a time when Christian nations would say, stop having slaves. So he didn't have to tell them to stop doing all these evil things. Allah knew that the Christians would be more powerful and would be able to control the disgusting, sick impulses and example of the prophet.
So his last response was, I'm a moron, which is something he puts in nearly, he calls me a nerd or a moron or something in nearly every comment. Very logical yes. To resort to.
Yeah, but that's what he's saying.
Allah ad hominem attacks.
Allah knew that humanity will establish this law and was told in the Quran. He's a wise
Actually, his last statement, I can't pull it up because I put him in timeout. I exerted my authority over him. But his last statement was that we follow Allah, then Muhammad, then authority. So in other words, if Allah gives you a law that the authorities contradicts, you shouldn't obey the authorities. But his whole point was that we have to follow the authority of the United States when they give us a law that contradicts Allah.
Yep.
Checkmate.
He is just repeating what Sheikh Google told him.
Yeah.
Something.
This is the level of their arguments.
Sorry.
If you take it, the cat's gone crazy. If you take this at face value, what he's saying is that Muhammad had depraved, disgusting rules, but it's okay because Allah knew that Christians would fix his stupid, disgusting rules. Christians would come along,
bro. Checkmate, bro. We gotta follow your Christian laws. Our God told us 6 shit, but we gotta follow your Christian laws. So checkmate, bro.
Yeah. So we're going to.
What an actual moron, right? As he's telling me I'm a moron. This is a guy who comes in here, calls himself logical dawa, and all of his comments consist of insulting people and contradicting himself. And whenever we try to follow his logic, it leads to a contradiction. Yep. And the last time he ran away, right? When we showed him that, remember his argument that Christianity is false is because they're random people on random islands that have never heard the Christian message. And I pulled him out that that's true of Islam as well, and he ran away. He couldn't handle that.
Yep. So
great logic there.
Well, now that Allah knows that Christians would keep people from following the disgusting example of Muhammad, so that means that you have to endorse monogamy, because Allah knew that there would be Christian nations who go, hang on, this polygamy stuff is absolutely revolting. We're not going to allow that. We were going to have Christian nations who teach morality to the pagan gods pagan dogs of Allah. And so he relied upon that. He relied upon that to prevent there from being moral outrages because Allah is so that he's so prescient rather. He's so prescient and so all-knowing that he knew that he didn't need to bother to tell them not to do morally outrageous things because morally superior people will come along and correct his perverted prophet. Very nice. All right, so here is another lady who got herself away from him. She kept kicking him out every time he tried to have sex with her. She was married to him against her will. He left her, waiting for her to become receptive to him, for her to change her mind. He was going to wear her down. Then when Ibrahim died, she said if he were a prophet, his son would have died. And so he divorced her. So she got away from him. Another girl got away from him. She said, hey, I'm not Muslim. I was forced to marry you, and I seek refuge from you in the name of Allah. And she was divorced immediately and sent back. So 3 women also escaped the perverted prophet, just like 3 women escaped. Was it 2 or I think maybe only 2 women escaped Joe. So anyway, Mo got a bunch of other wives with definite consummation. We talked about Zainab bint Jahash, Juwayriya, we've already talked about. Sophia, again, she was taken against her will. Ramla, Habiba, whom he married mainly to humiliate his enemy. And then Maymuna, who was just kind of this mild-mannered girl who didn't really have much to say. She kept a really clean house. That's what we know of her. But in addition to that, he had a whole bunch of slaves, a number of whom were sex slaves. Now notice that he gave Mary to his wife Hafsa. Mary wasn't even his slave anymore. He gave her to Hafsa, and then he slept with her anyway. So he had no rights over her to begin with. But because he had given her away, but he took her anyway. Anyway, there's Rehana, who is the Jewish woman who refused to convert to Islam, so remained a slave. A whole bunch of other women. Salma was probably quite old, so he probably did sleep with her. But we don't know how many of these others that he slept with. But we do know that he slept with a sex slave that Zainab bint Jahash gave him. So, but we have no idea how many others of these 13 ladies or 15 ladies he actually slept with. So our buddy Joseph Smith also liked him young, just not quite as young as Muhammad, probably because he could not quite flagrantly flout the laws the way Muhammad could, because Muhammad was completely his own law. He went after Helen Mar Kimball, who was a daughter of one of his besties. Familiar story, huh? My father asked me if I would be sealed to Joseph Smith and said to me, if you take this step, it will ensure your eternal salvation, exaltation, that of your father's household, and all of your kindred. So basically, we all get to be gods if you do this. So this promise was so great that I willingly gave myself to purchase so glorious a reward. So she sold herself for her promise of eternal godhood or whatever. She did not love him. We also have incredibly implausible stories about God telling people that I'm supposed to marry you. God says so, and stuff like that. Of course, we have Aisha's story. You know, Allah and Zainab ibn Jahash's story, right? Both of whom were supposed to be declared by Allah, and Marry the Cop story where Allah's like, no, I made you lust so that you know that you don't need to keep promises. So Joseph Smith claimed that this angel came to him to tell him to start taking lots of wives 3 times, the last in February of 1842, even though he'd been telling women they were sealed to him for years and doing ceremonies for a year at this point. He'd been doing actual ceremonies for a year. But suddenly he had to be told that he would be killed if he did not agree to this. And he was shrinking from it. Oh no, I shall not do polygamy. Isn't it terrible? But she says that had it not been for the fear of his displeasure, Joseph was shrunk from the undertaking, would have continued silent as he did for years until an angel of the Lord threatened to slay him if he did not reveal and establish his celestial principle. So he never would have done it. But an angel said, I will kill you if you don't tell people that the only way they can become gods is if they're sealed to people. And for some reason that introduces polygamy. We have no idea why that has anything to do with polygamy, but it does. Yeah.
So what you're saying is Joseph Smith was just too shy. He's just too shy to speak up for this. So the angel had to tell him to speak up because the angel wasn't shy. The angel was like, I will kill you if you don't speak up.
Exactly. And keep in mind that, you know, he's supposed to not like this principle or whatever, but he had been doing this for a long time before then. Aside from all the times he was messing with girls before that. So once older ladies, they got jealous, they began throwing themselves at him as the word got out for the celestial sealings. And these are more plausibly the eternally only. There's no reason to think any of the young ones are. If he approached them and if it wasn't like, oh, my elderly aunt, or oh, won't you marry me, or whoa,
let me just stop you real quick, Mary. Jalal Hassan says, I haven't heard any talk about Joseph Smith since I joined.
Maybe you should turn your volume on.
Yeah, so Jalal, say that I have my volume on and I hear you, because what is on your screen, what Mary has been talking about, is Joseph Smith. So if you haven't heard it, that means you're not listening. And if you're not listening and you don't affirm that you're listening, you will be put in time out for just being here to troll.
Yep. So, yes, you know the authentic Arabic name, Elizabeth Davis Brackenbury Durfee. A very, very Islamic name. Anyway, these again are more plausibly eternally only. No reason to think any of the young ones are. You have a 50-year-old married woman, 53-year-old married woman, a 37-year-old widow, and this one is one of the younger ones, and he was almost certainly, well, he was having intercourse with Eliza Snow, which is really funny because he first messed with Eliza Winters, and now he's messing with Eliza Snow. She was writing screeds claiming that Joe wasn't a polygamist. Even after he married her, he's banging her. And she is likely to have been thrown downstairs by Emma while she was pregnant. There are a bunch of different variants of this story, but the essential idea was the same, that she got pregnant, she had a miscarriage. It was attributed to Joseph Smith throwing her downstairs. There are Mormons who claim that this is just trying to excuse the fact that she was infertile later in life. Although if she was 38 then, she'd be pretty old, so one would think that she'd have another kid. And going, but miscarriages doesn't result in infertility. Well, if you have a traumatic miscarriage, it is very likely that you do not have the hormones that cause the release of the placenta correctly. And so you have retained placenta, you get a nasty fever, you get an infection, and then you have pelvic inflammatory disease and are rendered infertile. That was very common in the past. They currently massively overtreat and actually sterilize women by telling them to rush in for DNC as soon as they have a miscarriage. That will cause scarring. It will cause like a 10% chance of permanent infertility after one DNC. They lie to you. But the they didn't have this kind of ability to have DNCs at that time at all to treat a retained placenta. They also couldn't diagnose a retained placenta. Both of these are problems. So only in 1834 did Joe dictate his revelation on polygamy that we had before the DNC, ironically, Doctrines and Covenants DNC that we read earlier.
Not dilate and cut?
Yeah, not dilation and cutterage. But many Mormons knew after this point that polygamy was practiced and didn't know before. It was kind of like this open secret. I'm just highlighting here in red the very young ones, especially relative to his age, whose ages are known. Bunch of other wives. Oh, we got another 14 or 15-year-old. A 17-year-old who was a close childhood friend of his son. So she's around the house because she knows the son, and he's like, oh, I want to bang your friend. Another little 16-year-old. I mean, 22 is pretty obscene, too. And he basically blackmailed Maria or Eliza Partridge into it, too. She was also manipulated. I just have some of the women who are manipulated. I'm sure he said to all of them, God told me that you have to marry me. So another 14-year-old. Notice we got 3 14-year-olds here. Oh wait, that's the same one. That is the same one. It's just in the wrong order. Oh, it's because I wasn't sure which order. I'll fix that.
You'll have to correct that. But you should probably also highlight the one right above that, Melissa Lott there, 19. I think you should definitely highlight that.
I highlighted that as being ages that were considered very questionably young to get married at that age. So she's 19. She is questionably young for his age, but not questionably young
so
to
you're
marry
saying
at all.
only questionably
So,
young for
any marriage at all.
Yep.
Like
I gotcha.
the average person would go, oof, that's too young. 17 is kind of a goofy age. 16 is
I don't know what the standard was in 1843, but today, if a 45-year-old marries a 19, people will definitely go, oof, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, this one is the 17-year-old is super questionable because, again, the relationship to the son. But 17 was considered too young to marry, but some people did it. All right, fine, we can accept it. 16 and 14 are considered like, no, nobody should be actually marrying at this age. This is a bad idea. Like, no one would say it's a good idea for a 16-year-old to get married. And
yeah, when we saw that earlier chart.
So,
all right, when we saw that earlier chart.
You see the, yep.
I don't remember if it was 85 percentile, but whatever percentile it was.
89.
There was none that were below 89.
Yep.
There was none that were below 18. So that means like less than 10%. And really less than 5 because it's, two-sided. So if we 5 above and 5 below. So less than 5% for sure of people are being married before 18.
Yeah, it's a pretty, well, there's also the fact that this starts with 20 with men, but there's the fact that you are not considered an adult till 18. So people are like, no, you can wait a few years. That was overwhelmingly the answer, unless you have already knocked her up, basically.
But I thought it was just normal. I thought it was just normal. I mean, Yasser Qadi's grandmother got married at age 16, so it was just what everyone was doing back then, right?
Because like that world is somehow normal. The funny thing is that the youngest average age of marriage in U.S. history since the end of colonial times was in the 1950s.
So it wasn't in the 1850s or the 1750s?
Nope.
Oh, jeez. I thought that, is the further you went back in history, the younger they got married. Like at the time of Muhammad, it was just perfectly normal for 9-year-olds to be married, obviously.
Nope.
No? Oh.
But, yep, I made it through the material, by the way, so there we go. You got... Yeah, a lot of similarities with their predictions, their declarations, their. What's really funny about the Mary Heron story is that there is a testimony of a man who got caught having sex with another man's wife without. By this time it was in 1850, so by this time there's none of this polyandry anymore that was common in Joseph's time. And part of the testimony was about knowing that Joseph had intercourse with his mother on the basis of this kind of polyandry thing. And that was part of the testimony. And whether or not it's Joseph Smith depends on the identity of Joseph. But really, if it wasn't further specified, there was a person whose first name was Joseph. He was talked about in this deposition or this testimony, but he was referred to reliably, consistently by his last name. Why would you suddenly switch to a first name? I don't go Thaddeus, 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 and then suddenly start calling you Jones, 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 or whatever, right? Even though that's not your last name. But you don't flip back and forth. If you're referring to someone consistently by their last name, you don't switch to a first name. That would indicate that this is another person. And if it's speaking from a kind of authoritative action of someone, that would point to it being Joseph Smith. There are a number of other women who are also plausible plural wives, but I just can had the ones who seem the most plausible.
So public service announcement. Mr. Logical Dawa said that he is never coming back. So I said, okay, no problem. You're never coming back. I gave him a permanent block. So we don't have to worry about him again. That does mean, however, that if you see him in the chat in the future, it's because he created another account to continue to talk. So just thought I would make that public service announcement for everyone.
You're irrational.
They give a loan to Allah. What is the reward? The reward in this life is that the money will come back double. You give 100, 200 will come back. Sooner or later. Believe me. All money that is given for the sake of Allah, it comes back. And I'm sure that all of you have experience.
Yes, I'm sure you all have the experience of getting double your money back from Allah. Now, this is just a supporter message, so I guess you'll get double of nothing, but thank you very much for being a long-term supporter nonetheless. Misha SWB says, hail Lord Thaddeus and Mary, reasonable cult leaders. Everyone, this is a joke. Just to be clear. Definitely not leading a cult here. David YouTube says, does anyone know if Joe had a mole on his back? Need to know if he was a legit prophet. Good question. Good question. That is obviously the ultimate standard, or at least is the ultimate standard for Muhammad, because that's how people could recognize him from the scriptures, is his amazing mole. Whereas Joseph has a different strategy. He just writes the scriptures himself and says that the future prophet will be named Joseph, for example. So he's very easy to recognize since he himself wrote it.
Yep. Well, he did say a seed of Joseph. He didn't say he'd be named Joseph, but still.
Michael asked, do Mormons acknowledge Smith was a rapist? I don't think that they acknowledge, generally speaking, and you may find a Mormon who's willing to acknowledge it, but generally speaking, I don't think they acknowledge any of the sexual activities of Joseph Smith. They just
now they're admitting he's a polygamist officially. They're officially admitting that he's a polygamist. They denied it for years and years. So my question is, why are you following people who lied to you for years? And to suddenly tell you the truth. Like, you've been lying to us until you get caught and cornered, and now you're not, and you're supposed to believe them?
Yep. Good question. Why You know, same thing applies to the Muslims, right? They'll discover that their scholar has been lying to them for years about, say, perfect preservation of the Quran, and then they'll just immediately start repeating the new lie. You know, it's just pronunciation differences. There actually are differences, but they're just pronunciation differences, or whatever. Why? I don't know. To me, if someone's been lying to you about a religious matter, and you catch them lying to you about it, you probably shouldn't believe them on other religious matters. Just my suggestion. Now, there's a difference, obviously, between lying and being mistaken about something. Someone could be mistaken. They could have misinterpreted scriptures or whatever and say, yeah, I've changed my mind in light of new evidence, in light of new arguments, whatever. I changed my mind. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about saying things they know to be false and then just randomly starting to say something different when it becomes unsustainable to repeat the lie. We lied before, guys, but it's different now. Exactly. Exactly. Super chat from Daniel.
Brothers and sisters, why to lose this great opportunity? Remember, when the person is on his deathbed, the last minute, he will ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to be delayed for 1 second to do what? Not to pray, not to do other things, but to give sadaqah, because sadaqah you can give it just like this, in 1 second.
Just 1 second for that sadaqah, which Daniel has given, so we appreciate that. Y'all doing God's work. God bless you, and nice cat. Thank you for your support. Looks like we won't get to in super chats today, but we can just blame Jack Ray because he wasn't here today. He probably would have given 7 himself to make us get there. So it's all his fault. Appreciate your support, Jack, if you see this later on. Good question here from Appy. Where can one get material on Joseph Smith? Is there a biography or something?
There are a whole bunch of sources. There's someone who, Dan Vogel, has done really good work. There are other original sources out there a lot. There's some really disgusting polygamy apologists who actually have some decent info on the side. They're like, he didn't have kids, so that's evidence he wasn't banging them. I'm like, yeah, let's ignore all the testimony about the rampant abortions.
Well, besides that, I thought Joseph Smith did have a bunch of kids.
Well, no, he had kids with Emma only. He didn't have kids with all the plural wives. He didn't give them money and he didn't have kids with them. He just had them for sex. They were his sex women. He didn't give them money. He didn't support them. He just used their bodies. And if they got pregnant, he had them abort their children.
So I guess he did have a bunch of children, but they were supposedly all Emma's. So.
Yeah.
Oh, well, except for 2 that were supposedly adopted. So there you
go. Well, I mean, there are other adopted kids that he was banging too, but yes.
Anyway, I just thought they had a lot of kids. I didn't realize that they're all from one woman. So there you go. Lots of materials to check out there. I'm sure that there are, many critical biographies of Joseph Smith. He is actually a pretty important guy. Even though Cargo Crew says he's not, Joseph Smith is irrelevant. He's very little impact on society, but Muhammad has a deep negative impact.
He tried to have an impact. He did eventually find out about Muhammad, or at least general details, and he said that he would be the second Muhammad, and it would be like the Muhammad, the Quran or the sword, and he would be another one like that, and people would either follow him or they would die. He just couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he tried to be. He really tried to be. When he found out more about Muhammad's pattern, he's like, yeah, got to do that.
And I did look it up. There are an estimated 17 million Mormons in the world, which is very small compared to Islam. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Muhammad's way more impactful. But I would say 17 million people following a false prophet is rather significant and definitely something worth addressing. And to be clear, I don't think Carter is saying don't address him. He's just saying that obviously Muhammad gets most of the attention, which is obviously true, right? We have 4 or 5 streams on Mormonism and 200 on Islam. So,
Well, this is our second stream on Mormonism.
Well, it might be your second stream.
Yours. Oh yeah, you've done it.
But I have a couple others.
Yeah, that's right.
They might have been with other people. I don't remember for sure.
Yep, they were either alone or with others.
Anyway, yes, Joseph Smith is not as impactful as Muhammad, but he does need to.
Well, one thing that's important is just that you can see the pattern, that this is no one who says that Muhammad is a true prophet says that Joseph Smith is the true prophet. No one who says that Joseph Smith is a true prophet says Muhammad is a true prophet. It's extremely obvious to each group that the other person is a false prophet, and yet they're incredibly similar in so many ways that he was called the American Muhammad very, very early on. Like, I think in his lifetime, he was being called the American Muhammad because people who were knowledgeable realized how similar he was.
Yeah, well, if I'm not mistaken, that's literally the first biography written about him is called The American Muhammad.
Yeah.
So there you go. And even if Mormonism isn't all that significant in its own right, the fact that it's doing all the same things has so many similar claims also undermines Islam, right? It doesn't just undermine Joseph. It undermines Islam as well. That the same pattern is taking place here. Dragon says, like, share, and subscribe, and hit the like button. So I guess you got to hit the like button twice. God bless you all. If you haven't liked the stream, make sure to do so. If you're not a subscriber, now is the time. Doesn't cost anything. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. One more super chat. This one from Holy Joe.
If the 116 lost pages survived and are found, does that mean Mormonism is finished?
Brother asks a good question.
So Joe Smith actually did attempt to come up with a solution for this because he was terrified they would be found. So what he declared is there are actually 2 books from which he is translating. And he was allowed to translate from the lesser plates for his first translation, from the beginning all the way through to the end. And then he was given the blessing to translate from the greater plates, of which the lesser plates were a summary to replace the missing pages. So that was his official out. So as long as he kind of had the same events and didn't have any direct contradictions, he could get away with it being completely different words.
So we got Lay here with a great observation. Thing is, all these Abrahamic faiths come from the same source. Only difference is Islam has retained most of the practices, but Christianity is just as much the same. It derives from Judaism, and Judaism is a lot more hardcore than Islam. No matter how much you try to pick and choose laws in Islam, you can't deny that Christianity is the same essence as Islam. The only way to do yourself justice is to leave Christianity.
Considering how phenomenally ignorant you have been of Islam and how clearly you have demonstrated your spectacular ignorance of the contents of the Quran, what it teaches, the life of Muhammad, you are phenomenally ignorant of Islam. I have no reason to think that you are not equally ignorant of the Bible. Why do you think, how dare you have an opinion over something that you have absolutely no factual information about? None whatsoever. Not in the slightest. Christianity is followed according to what? The teachings of whom? Our founder, Jesus Christ. We follow what he teaches and what he has always taught. So to say, oh, you just deny the faith, that's a filthy lie. Now, Islam did not come from Judaism. It did not come from Christianity. It came from the mind of a man who's wandering around and just declared that he was getting revelations that were the same about things that he had kind of heard of. You might as well say that Jim Jones came from Christianity. So it's really Christianity. And when they drank the Kool-Aid and they all died, that's Christianity. That's how intelligent you sound right now. It's absolutely ridiculous to make that kind of claim. And it is embarrassing for you to claim it. And it's embarrassing for all of us to have to read it. Do not insult our intelligence. Why don't you try educating yourself
Yeah.
before you come out and make such positive declarations? Yes, everything that Lay has said during the entire time has been untrue. And also, Christianity does not derive from Judaism. It doesn't. It doesn't derive from Judaism. Rabbinical Judaism is a departure from the historical Jewish faith. There is a historical Jewish faith that existed up through Christ, and which Christ took and fulfilled the messianic blessings. And then there's rabbinical Judaism, which is a load of copium created to deny the historical faith and reject the Messiah.
So not only is Lay ignorant about Islam and ignorant about Christianity, she's also ignorant of what religion is. She thinks that religion is just a set of practices, just a set of laws. That's not what Christianity is about, and it's not what religion in general is about. I don't know where you got your ideas about religion, probably from some brain dead atheist propaganda website, and now you think that you know everything, and you think you're so enlightened, and you think, oh, I'm just being tolerant and loving everyone. No, nonsense. Christianity, the message of Christianity is that you are a sinner, you do wrong things, you need to repent, and you need to follow God and trust in him to do the work of bringing salvation for you. It's not about following a set of laws. It's about having a relationship with the Creator, with God. So you don't know the slightest thing about Christianity. You don't even know what religion is.
Not even a little bit.
To religious people, religion is not a set of laws to follow. And you're like, well, someone told me you follow the same laws and you just got rid of someone because you're liberal. Therefore, it's the same exact religion. No, it's not. And Islam does not derive from Christianity and Judaism in any material way. Muhammad heard some ideas, badly repeated them, and claimed to be following the same thing. That's not derived from, nor does Christianity derive from Judaism. It is in fact a completion of the Jewish faith. It is the same religion, in other words. It is not a derivative thereof. It is the same religion as biblical Judaism. And as Mary says, rabbinic Judaism, or what you would just call all the Judaism, right, is in fact the derivative, is the derived religion. Because Judaism is dependent, in the Bible, is dependent on the temple sacrificial system, which is not possible after the year 70 AD. And so the people who have rejected Jesus as Messiah come around and are like, well, how are we supposed to continue this religion? Our basis for its foundation is gone. What are we supposed to do? So then they end up inventing something which is new. It is derivative, right? It is derivative. It is from the same origins, unlike Islam, which isn't even from the same origins at all, but it is the derived faith. Christianity is not the derived faith. So you don't know anything about any of these things, yet you come in here and you're like, you guys are just so filled with hate. Why is this? Can't we all just get along? I just have some squishy beliefs and I don't really believe in anything. Why can't you all just agree that I'm right and you're wrong?
How dare you sit on a pedestal whenever you are educated, knowledgeable, understand what the purpose of Israel was. The purpose of Israel.
And so, Lay has confirmed that she got all her information from atheist blogs, because the Bible does not tell you to bash the brains of babies against rocks. You have no idea where that came from, so I'm not going to explain it to you. You need to actually do some actual research, some actual education of yourself, and learn what Jews and Christians actually believe. Because you've just gone to some website that's telling you nonsense.
So again, this proves your ignorance. This proves that you are disgraceful and you have no objective here to engage honestly with anything. You're here defending a pedophile and a pedophile religion because you hate God so much. So Thaddeus said that the Jewish faith from before Christ is that Christ came as the fulfillment of that and brought in the new covenant. The old covenant had no bashing of babies in rocks either. You're just lying.
I know.
You're just lying. So you have no care for the truth, no regard for honesty, not a shred of decency in your body, that you defend eternal pedophilia and go, oh, but you can just tell them not to follow Sharia. And then, oh, if you don't bash babies and rocks, you're not really following the religion. Pathetic.
I know.
Really pathetic.
I know.
All right.
And then we got someone who's very appropriately named Ultimate Predator, says religions are called. And yeah, I would say that the ultimate predator would be someone who comes in and tells you that religion's bad, don't follow religion. So
yes, religion bad, don't follow religion. Listen to me as I explain to you instead, because I'm the God you should follow. Or maybe I'll even tell you to follow yourself as God. There we go.
Yep, and he is the ultimate predator. He is the ultimate predator. All right. So tomorrow, looks like Mary and I will be discussing the latest drop of Behind Veils. Very juicy, very good stuff. You'll definitely want to tune in for that tomorrow, because Mary will be speaking tomorrow. We won't have her back on Tuesday. That was her compromise. Now I'd be happy to host her whenever she wants, but she's like, well, if I'm going to come tomorrow, I don't want to also come to Tuesday. Perfectly fine. We'll do something else during the week. After we wrap up here, you'll be redirected to new video about to premiere on Ali Dawah being caught with prostitutes. Very spicy. I'm sure you'll want to check that out. Final thoughts from you, Mary.
Yeah, it's just that Joseph Smith and Muhammad, listen, they drink from the same fountain. They come from the same source. If you believe in one, you have a reason to believe in the other. If you reject one, you shouldn't accept the other, because they are so starkly similar in so many ways. You know, this is no new observation. Pretty much anyone who had any dealings at all with Mormonism were like, man, this is awfully lot like Islam. Yes, we are the ones who are full of ourselves and brainwashed. We who are actually educated in the subject, versus you who got internet atheist talking points and think that you are superior to us.
So, Lay, where did you present any proof? Look at you all in the chat claiming I'm wrong, but you resent, I think you mean present, no oruf, I think you mean proof, no verses, do nothing, and expect me to believe your mere words.
All you have to do is read the New Testament. Just read it. I know that you are massively ignorant. I want to see how brainwashed you are. You don't know anything. You haven't read anything. So you are a sophist. Because what are you doing? What are you doing? You're like, oh,
yeah, I mean, you literally thought the Bible teaches you to bash babies' heads, and you're talking to us about not presenting any verses.
It's pathetic.
But you want some specific verses? Go read Galatians.
Yeah, go read Galatians. You're pathetic. Come back
when
you've read Galatians
and see what it says.
And then tell us that we are following, that we have forgotten what Christianity is. Go read Galatians, come back. It's a short book. Even you, I'm sure, can handle Galatians and even understand it. I know that words are difficult for you because you are a kind of person who just like watches a spicy video and forms your entire identity around it. But I have faith in you that you are capable of reading Galatians. When you have, come back and talk to us. Until then, be quiet.
Mm-hmm. And then we got ultimate predator displaying the same level of education as Lay here. As long as religions and churches exist, peace will never be in this world. Meanwhile, in actual reality, well over 95% of all wars ever created had nothing to do with religion. But it's all religion's fault. It's all religion's fault.
The vast majority of the wars that are related to religion are Islamic.
I know. Of that 5%, like 4.5 is Islam. So it's like 95% secular causes, 4.5% Islam, and 0.5% all other religions combined. But yes, religion is the problem.
Lee, you don't know anything. You don't know Galatians. You can't tell us what Galatians says because you don't know anything. You're ignorant. You're just completely ignorant.
I know too much.
Ultimate predator here is like, oh, all we need is no religion and there'll be peace. Every single atheistic society has been phenomenally, unspeakably violent with millions and millions dead. The first atheistic political movement invented terrorism, anarchism, unkingness, was the first movement of atheism, which involved murdering random people, the assassinations of just completely random kings for no reason. Much of the time was done by atheists, causing all kinds of trauma and wars and things. And the Reign of Terror was the first atheistic political movement. Mm-hmm. Atheism owns Reign of Terror. Atheism owns the bloody communist conflicts and deliberate starvation of the people that killed millions and millions and millions. The entire death toll, like only atheism has a death toll that might be greater than Islam, even though atheistic movements have only been around less than 250 years.
Mm-hmm. So Ultimate Predator here, displaying his ignorance about all things, says more peaceful in China than the religion world. So obviously Ultimate Predator has no idea that China is training its youth to be soldiers who will slaughter non-Han people in the name of Chinese nationalism, because, you know, that's just something that religions do, according to him. And Lay, I never said you were atheist. I said you have squishy spiritualistic beliefs, and there you go, confirming it. So.
And I bet I know more about Hinduism than you. Do you want to talk about Atman and Brahman? Because I can talk about Atman and Brahman until your face falls off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Lay doesn't actually know anything about those either.
No,
right?
she doesn't.
I'm sure she read some like hippie squishy blog that says Hinduism is cool, and now she's like, yeah, Hinduism's cool. I want to be a Hindu. Oh boy. All right, so we're gonna wrap up here. Like I said, you'll be redirected to the premiere of the new Ali Dawa video. Just give me 1 minute to actually set that, because I didn't know exactly what time we would end, so I had to wait until we were about to end to actually set it. And let's see, go here and go to customization, set a redirect, and save. All right. And I'll put the link in the chat as well in case it doesn't work for you. But we'll be back tomorrow to talk about the new Behind Veils videos. Mary and I will be on Apologetics Roadshow tomorrow evening. And then Mary will do some important work during the week instead of wasting her time streaming with me. Although I'm sure that she doesn't consider it a waste of time by any means.
No, no waste of time. All right. I will catch you later. Oh, yep. Lee says that if it comforts you, go ahead and believe it. All right. So if it comforts people to believe that they should chop off your neck unless you convert to Islam, we should believe in it.
Wait.
Right, we're gonna go
this is Lay. This was Lay who was in here telling us how horribly wrong Christianity is, and how Islam and Christianity are basically the same thing. But you know, if it comforts you, just believe it. So she can't even be consistent about her own beliefs.
No.
And yet this is the person who we should follow.
And notice that everything that she says is just informed by her hatred of Christ. That's the only consistent thing is I hate Christ.
Yep.
So, all right.
Yep. All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We will close out with the words of Pastor Jake.
Pray this ceaselessly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God.